we're not live yet, and we're live apparently. There we go. Hang on. Hello, folks. Thanks for very much for joining me. If anybody's out there, there we go. That's a bit better. Is it? Oh, hang on. Just adjust our camera a wee bit. There we go. Bring in a bit more light, hopefully. No, that's not working. There we go. Oh, there we are. Sorry about that. Thanks for joining me. If anybody's out there, we're starting up on a new time and day on Mondays. We were trying to figure out a name to call the show on a Monday, and it was well, we didn't get much time, I suppose. But we were sci-fi moon days, and thought we'd have a bit, just sort of reorganize the chats that we used to do. Sorry about that. On Fridays and Saturdays with our Science Fiction Fridays and Saturdays. So thank you very much for joining me. If anybody's out there, say hello, and just discuss a few wee things tonight. And we'll just recap on how we're doing with the June Book Club. There we go, a bit disorganized here tonight, which we're back on with on Thursdays. So for anybody who's missed out on that, we were up to chapter 26 with the June Book Club, and then we'd had to take a bit of a break for about a month or so, and we're sort of getting around to answering our correspondences and stuff like that. And we're back with that now once a week on Thursdays at 10 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time +1. And the change in time is just sort of really to help me manage things a wee bit better, just with life going on here as it does. So there we go. So for anybody who's, we were running 2 episodes of the book club a week because June's quite a dense book, and we were really trying to push through it. But yeah, best laid plans of mice and men oft go awry, don't they? So we're happily settling into that with 1 a week, I think, and it allows us to look at the book in a lot more easygoing way. Telios, how are you, Doc? It's Babs on my second device. Hi, Bab. Telios Dawis. Very excellent. How are you doing, Babs? Thanks very much for joining us. Yeah, any ideas, by the way? I'm open for ideas as to what to call a Science Fiction Monday show. I've gone with Mondays, but it's just something, a shoe-in for now, I think. I'll have to have a bit of a better thought about something, more alliterative or something like that. Just in terms of stuff that's out there, I suppose. And again, if anybody's got any questions on anything to do with science fiction or genre fiction, and literally in all of its forms, whether it be movies, comics, videos, etc., books, short stories, you name it, fire away and ask, and we'll see what we can do to help. I've got a few wee things to announce, actually, just in terms of what's going on here locally. Very rare do you find sort of stuff like this in Northern Ireland, but we have a couple of events this weekend. One is the QCon event up at Queen's University in Belfast. I think it's running over, is it Saturday and Sunday? Over the Saturday and Sunday, I think, the 18th. Let me just check. Excuse me. Yeah, the 18th and 19th of this month, just this weekend. And that's for all the, all the kids' science fiction, fantasy, but it's mainly the trading card games and comics and things like, I don't know, goodness, here you go, watch my age, Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon and stuff like that, and etc., etc. But for anybody who's also in Northern Ireland, I suppose, or in Ireland, this weekend also sees Enniskillen Comic Fest, which is at St. McCartan's Cathedral, which is 2 Halls Lane in Enniskillen. It's got a couple of notable guests for any big comic book fans, but one of them is Garth Ennis, who'll be there doing signings, I believe, and Mike Dory is there from, I suppose, the great days of British comics. Mike Dory would have been an artist for 2000 AD, Tornado, the revamped Eagle comics like Action and Warlord, stuff like that. Very, worked around the circuit, if you like, and a pretty good artist. So just a couple of names of note there. There's a whole bunch of comic book artists, etc. But yeah, Garth Ennis and Mike Dory will be in town in Enniskillen at the Comic Fest this weekend. So if anybody's local, I suppose, and wants to check those out, I just kind of keep a wee nosy about things like that. I suppose we have a Comic-Con coming up, I think in about September, which has become a decent enough event in Northern Ireland. There we go. So just a wee thing, yeah. Garth Ennis, of course, isn't it? Preacher and The Boys, etc. Is originally from Northern Ireland. We used to have a chat about how Northern Ireland doesn't produce science fiction authors, but It produced Garth Ennis. There you go. So he's very, very good, actually. Both men have worked for 2000 AD, which, if we know our British comics, I suppose, which is still going strong. I'm a big fan of, and is a big influence in my life. So, excuse me. So there we go. That's just a couple of I suppose, housework to get out the way there. So anybody wants to check those out, I'd love to go down myself, but I think life's not going to allow it. And I suppose in terms of where we left off before we took our month off, I suppose I was saying I didn't get any time to do any reading, but last night I was still on the same book there for the Demolished Man, and last night I made a good sort of plunge through it. I think I'll try and finish it within the next day or two, and I might make a little video for the station, not on the book, I'm thinking actually, but on the main character himself, who's a character called Ben Reich. And I've been thinking a fair bit about this character, and I've even been thinking about arguably almost a relationship between the Demolished Man and Richard Matheson's I Am Legend, which is a great book if anybody hasn't read it. But I've been having to be thinking about it. I've been thinking about the character of Ben Reich as an archetype, both for, I suppose, science fiction corporate villains, if you like, and also almost as a character that's sort of, I suppose, within the science fiction awareness of the billionaire, if you like, which is a character that would remind you, I suppose, on the likes of Elon Musk, Richard Branson, Jeff Bezos, or Trump, even. I think even to a degree Putin, any of these Russian oligarchs, these kind of extremely powerful people whose power comes from their wealth. But it's just that I'm pleased to have got back into the swing of reading. So it's a really enjoyable book for anybody who wants to check it out. I think we've described it as a whodunit, where you know who did it straight off. It's a bizarre murder mystery, if you like. Well, the mystery is altogether something else. There's Joseph Smith, June fan, saying howdy Joseph, thanks for joining us. Bojack Harkness, hi Bojack, said I finished Tiger, really enjoyed it. Going to read it again immediately. Excellent, Bojack. It's a fantastic book. If you're really interested, bear with me a wee second if I can find this. There's a free graphic novel online from under the name The Star's My Destination. Bear with me one wee second, and I will get you the name of the author, I believe, if I've kept it. Let me see. I'm sure I've kept it because I absolutely love it myself. Images. Let's see. A to Z Bester Art episode. There we go. I must start trying to use a studio here so that I can bring stuff up on the screen for you. There's the title cover book. Let me see. I used a lot of the art from this graphic novel in the wee episode that I did recommending Tiger. There's a graphic novel. I think it's actually Australian, possibly, and I think it might be from the 70s. Alfred Bester's The Star's My Destination by Howard Chaykin. That's Chaykin, and Byron Preece, which is Preiss, by the way. And I think it's originally published by hotcomic.net, but there's epic graphic novel, maybe not, maybe that's where I found it. There's a JPEG, the whole thing, JPEG by JPEG version of it, free online, and I really enjoyed it. I pointed out there's one tiny mistake in it, is the registration of the Vorg is wrong, and I thought that's a really bad mistake, because it's what is it, Bojack? Is it the T1339, isn't it? And it's meant to, if you have a wee look at it, it's meant to look like Tiger itself. And I think they changed it slightly for some reason. But there you go. Yeah, it's a great book. If you really enjoyed it, Bojack, The Demolished Man is for you. If you like that, it's really, really good. And I think this is 19. Yeah, this is 53, and Tiger comes a little bit later. But genuinely, when I read Tiger, I went straight to this immediately after. And then I've actually got a collection. I've got Extra, and a really nice collection of Alfred Bester's short stories. So the other thing, Bojack, just in relation to that, is that just in relation to having spent a wee bit of time looking at Alfred Bester. We're going to wrap that up quite soon, as I said, possibly with another wee video. And I was going to add an audio book, and I think it's Audionid. I believe it, or the one that he won the competition with that launched his writing career is in the public domain. So I'm thinking on recording that as an audiobook, getting it up on the station, because I have a bunch of audiobooks that we talked about that we'd like to get done. But it is a really good book, and it's I don't know, when people think about it, it is one of these books that people say, and quite a lot of people, I think, as we evidenced, if you see what I mean, that a lot of people think this is the bee's knees, this is the best science fiction book there is, and it makes you wonder, what is it about it that attracts such comments? And even myself, I love it, and I find it really hard to get a grip on it, if you see what I mean. It's a hard book to describe. If you want to call it a piece of literature, it's got literary chops, but I think someone else described it as being very elegantly pulpy, and it is. It has that kind of. It's got a different sensibility to it. In some ways, it almost reads like an Ian Fleming James Bond novel as well. And the protagonist, what a there's parts where you're rooting for him. He's not likable, not likable at all. I think it's a cracker, and it is what me. And I actually did that video because people keep asking me what's the best, what's the favorite, and I don't really like that kind of idea. So I kind of thought, okay, well, let's run with what other people think of the best, and I really do think that it's a great book. I think it's but it's got unusual qualities, and I think if you stood it up next to kind of more, how would we put it, more sort of grand literary science fiction, then I think you'd get people who would argue, well, why are you saying this is so good? Because it does come across as pulpy, but it plays with language so readily and easily and deliberately. I think a lot of it's intentional. Thanks for the graphic novel heads up. I'll read that, and I'm going to pick up The Demolished Man at the library. Yeah, I found that graphic novel. I said I was just doing research, Bojack, for some images, and absolutely found that, and just downloaded the whole thing and sat one night here on the computer and read it and looked at it. And it's a very fine graphic novel, and I don't know why it's not kind of, possibly still in print. It said it was really good. But yeah, no worries at all. I'm bummed Ridley Scott's Raised by Wolves got cancelled. I was enjoying that, some really wild sci-fi. I heard that it got cancelled at Bojack, but I haven't had a chance to look at it yet, sadly. And yeah, it does look quite interesting. It reminds me of some other stuff like that. I suppose. I get the sense that, isn't it? Is it like a human child being raised by a couple of AIs? I think something like that. It's an interesting thing. Raised by Wolves. It's a very old concept in terms of stories, if you see what I mean. Even the idea of Tarzan, etc. This kind of thing. But by all accounts, again, it's not something I've seen, so I can't comment. But the comments that it was kind of, that looks good. It's on my radar, if you see what I mean, because a lot of people seem to think it was quite good. Ridley Scott's, I used to really like Ridley Scott, and I suppose I still do. I like his films, but the whole alien thing, kind of, my wife's not watched the Alien series. I've seen the first one, I think, and at the time when Prometheus came out, I convinced her to go with me to see it at the cinema, because I think I'd seen Alien 3 and I'd seen 2, 3, and 4 at the cinema, and it was rubbish. And we just came out just going, I apologized. It's one of the films that I've apologized to somebody for, but I really didn't enjoy it, and I know it went on with that alien story, and I don't know where it was going with it, but I just thought, I don't know. There was a bunch of comics and things in I think in the late 80s, early 90s, possibly, that kind of went on with some of the ideas in the Alien universe, and they were pretty good. And then they started doing all these crossovers. I think Aliens versus Judge Dredd, this kind of thing. Aliens versus RoboCop got a bit silly. But But yeah, it's a real pity, BoJack, when a really good show gets cancelled. And as much as I don't like shows that run on too long, they tend to get lost in themselves, I think. Something that's sort of self-contained. I think if a show can run for 4 or 5 years, um, that's enough. I think it gets to a point where you're just it's very hard to bring in fresh ideas. And just I don't know. It's the idea of just having more of the same thing, if you see what I mean. So it's sad when it's something that's new, looks fresh, possibly got some good ideas in it, and it's maybe just sometimes it's a bit just left field of the public awareness, if you see what I mean. Um, I think that the show that was pretty well known for that was it Babylon 5, and I might not be fully correct here, but the way that Babylon 5 got cancelled, and I think it was cancelled, something to do with it was cancelled before. Well, as it was due, it was meant to be 5 years. The story told over 5 years, and I think they got told to wrap it up for year four. Um, and which was and year four is incredibly intense, I think, because there's so much in it that they had to pack in. And then it was one of those things where I don't know whether the audience grew or it was just simply that the show had been simmering and then exploded. Um, that people were watching it, and suddenly the decision to not cancel it. If you see what I mean, and the effect on Babylon 5 was that it ended up with a really poor fifth season, because it had crammed all of its storylines and tried to wrap everything up in year four, thinking they weren't going ahead. But yeah, it's annoying, and you often wonder. It's often pretty sad when they seem to be pretty good shows, and you kind of don't go, you kind of don't understand why some executive has cancelled something. Um, you know, and it's a bit like I just think it was a bit like some sports teams, with the English football team. Not that I'm into football or anything like that, but I suppose with England managers, things like this are football managers. If you see what I mean, they're brought in to sort something out. If you don't do it quickly, out they go, and we'll bring in someone else. And there's never time to sort of embed these people into the teams and get to know their players, etc. If they don't produce quick results. So it's a pity. I think another show that suffered, BoJack. I don't know if you're a fan of it, if anybody's a fan of it, is Farscape. And Farscape is, I don't know. I really like Farscape. It's a consistently really good TV show. Lot of good actors. Everything about it's good in terms of science fiction. It's quality. The sets, everything. And it really was a very good show. And I think it was on a way to a natural progression that ended up being cut. And I think they were fortunate enough to be able to wrap up their story with the wee sort of miniseries film. But that was another example of, what are you doing here? This show is really good. And I think Farscape really did, break a few molds, if you see what I mean. It was a bit tongue in cheek to American science fiction. The whole, everybody works together. Let's solve this by compensating something, like Star Trek does. Very much that engineer paradigm, if you like. Oh, who's that? There's a dog flinging the door. It's Holly. Hello, love. You okay? Hello. That was a forceful entry into the room. You okay? Sorry, that's my doggy Holly coming in. Off you go, love. Anyone watch Station 11 on HBO? That was really good. Only a one-season show and wonderful. Sadly, no. BoJack, again, I'm kind of limited by what streaming services I have available to me. As a family, I suppose, and we pay for a couple of them, but that's about it, really. So it's interesting. It's simply in terms of corporate streaming services, etc. Kind of what you have in your house depends on what you can see. So. There's no Star Wars for us or anything like that from the Disney, etc. There's lots of things that you're not getting access to now unless you subscribe to this particular streaming service. So sadly, no. One season, a good one season show is a lovely thing. That one of the I'm trying to think, what was a really good one that was it The Lost Room? It's a good while back now. I think it's not. Yeah, I mean, The Lost Room. There is an example I don't know if anybody's seen it. It's a while back. I caught it. I think I downloaded it actually. I don't before it was over here, but that's a very short series, a really good premise, and if you understand the nature of the show, they could have milked it. Theoretically, they could have made an episode out of every single object that's in the room, and they didn't. And they just basically, you have the story, and it's done, and away you go. And I think the Lost Room, whether you like it or not, I think it's a really good show. It has hints of the Twilight Zone and all sorts of things about it, and it's quick, and it explains its universe and the rules, and it really works. It's a very good wee science fiction mystery, I think. But as I said, that could have been drawn out, and easily, all the you could have made an episode about each object that's in the motel room. That's a really good example of something getting it 6 and you're done. And I would watch that. I have watched it more than once, and I've really enjoyed it each time. The Obi-Wan is trash. They just keep getting worse. The only thing that I've seen of the new Star Wars series is, I suppose the different ones, is I saw the first series of The Mandalorian, and I was a little bit appalled. I thought it was quite good, but I was appalled at this where they've lifted their source material from. Do I have any of them here? I don't know. But basically, it's pretty much Lone Wolf and Cub, isn't it? Baby Cart, Baby in the Cart, the Baby Cart series. Astonishingly so, the whole baby. I don't know if anybody's noticed this or anybody knows Lone Wolf and Cub, but that's pretty much what it struck me as, and I just thought the idea of Star Wars kind of being originally the original Star Wars film is I suppose the bulk of the main plot borrows heavily from Hidden Fortress, the Akira Kurosawa film. Heavily, there's a lot of other things there too, but if anybody's ever seen Hidden Fortress, you'll get it. The two droids, the two thieves, and it's all to do with samurai gold, isn't it? But it's very, very good film. So I've seen a bit of contention, I suppose, online. I do have a look at Twitter the odd time. I don't really sort of engage too much on it and have a nosy about. But I get the sort of general sense that it's people discuss it as another sort of bait and switch story, this kind of thing. I don't know if it's true or not. Again, I can't really comment because I haven't seen it, But yeah, I thought Ewan McGregor's a good actor, and I suppose knows the character. But it's I don't know. It's the sensibilities of a corporation churning out show after show after show. It's you've got to understand that no matter what your product is, it's going to be diluted. It's going to weaken it. I think less is more. If you see what I don't know. I've been thinking about this BoJack, to be honest with you, just in terms of somebody posted online today on Twitter that it would be handy if I think it was something to do with if only the Star Wars fandom read the classics. And I was actually wondering what they were talking about because I saw the word classics and just classic books or classical literature. So classical literature is what they were talking about. It was things like the Iliad and the Odyssey. Hello. Excuse me. And I suppose it was just the general. Oh, can you see this? Hang on. Who's that there? Oh, she's away. You camera shy. That's all right. Holly's jumping up on me there. Sorry, folks. Okay, go find Mandy. Go on. Oh, you just sit there then. But yeah, I don't know the idea of, I suppose, the whole toxic fandom, this kind of thing that's emerging out of these things. And I suppose what does Star Wars represent? Anyway, to me, I went to see Star Wars when I was 4. When I went to see all 3 films and even did a double bill with Star Wars Empire Strikes Back when it came out, and would have even seen things like Caravan of Courage and things like that. But I suppose as a little kid, you just want to lap it up, don't you? But I don't know. I think the quality of a lot of these TV shows is quite poor, to be honest with you. And it's not really the actors, is it? It's honestly, it's got to be the writing. To be honest with you, I think, and I don't know. I think Star Trek's a very poor shadow of its former self, and I would say that Star Wars is also the same. And I used to think that Star Wars was a kind of very much a modern, I guess, a fantasy given a science fiction mythical setting, and that ultimately over the three films it was meant to be something of hope. If you see what I mean, the whole Star Wars is a new hope, and the conclusion at the Return of the Jedi is there you go. Evil has been defeated by good. We can all live, and again, that fairy tale effort. We can all live happily ever after, And I think it's I think I've pointed this out that what the Star Wars universe represents to me is not good triumphing over evil anymore, or this kind of this kind of old mythological kind of thing. It's perpetual war, and I find that depressing. Pardon me. Let me catch up with your comments, folks. Matt S says the problem I have with Obi-Wan is that I think the writing and acting are very poor. The villain Reva punches down by threatening Leia. What kind of Sith Lord has to engage a 10-year-old in a philosophical debate? Star Wars is a Western in space. The Empire is the real. Yeah, it's a good point, Matt. Actually, it's actually whenever I started doing all those videos, I talk about my introduction to science fiction is actually an introduction, so I suppose proper is an introduction by J.B. Priestley, and he talks about the similarity between the Western novel and the science fiction novel. Pretty much a Western in space. The Empire's a Railroad. I'm a huge Kurosawa fan as well. Yeah, I've lost all my. I've got two left. And otherwise, I've lost all my Kurosawa films, which is really sad because I had some lovely British Film Institute editions, I think, with introductions by Alex Cox, who used to do Movie Drone, and absolutely lovely films. My favorite one, I'm hard pressed to say, is probably my favorite Akira Kurosawa film is Sanjuro, the samurai comedy. It's a sort of loose sequel to Yojimbo, isn't it? Really, I'm quite a big fan of Redbeard, to be honest, and I love this. They're all great. Seven Samurai, but the two that I have left are Ran and Kagemusha. So gutted, gutted. I must get them again. It's I suppose I have a digital copy of the Seven Samurai. But yeah, anybody who's not watched them, they're fantastic. They really are. Yeah, Western in space. Well, it's again the similarity what you're saying, Matt, and we're talking about the Kurosawa films. Is if we understand that little bit of cinema history, there's a lot of sort of back and forth, isn't there, in terms of influences between John Ford and Kurosawa? I suppose riffing off each other, yeah. So of course, Magnificent Seven's his version of if I've got the director right, Seven Samurai, etc. Yeah. Yeah, the Western space, pretty much. I think it's Empire's a Railroad. You could argue it's what they done with the prequels. That's the birth of the Roman Empire, pretty much. It's how the Republic falls and how an empire is born. And that there are lots of, again, a lot of the mythological allusions within Star Wars. Lucas sort of following the Hero of a Thousand Faces, the myth, what do we call it, the monomyth pattern. Lucas has also said he was inspired by Vietnam protests and alienation from the Nixon government. Yeah, there's a lot of Dune in Star Wars as well, and yeah, there's a lot of there's an awful lot of science fiction from probably the 20s onwards. I'd say that it's again, there's a lot of nods to things. There's certain designs, or C-3PO looks a bit like the robot, I suppose, Maria from Metropolis, and the whole Flash Gordon episodic kind of, Buck Rogers episodic nature of it, that kind of thing. And I'd say even the sort of the World War II films, and the dog fighting and stuff like that. But yeah, you see that we've discussed this before, Matt. What you're saying about inspired by Vietnam protest and alienation from the Nixon government. That there's something about the arrival of the original Star Wars film, probably at the end of this the whole Vietnam era, etc. That there's a really bad sort of miasma, I think, in the general spirit of mankind, if you like, but particularly in America. And I think that when something about the Star Wars phenomenon, if you like, whatever you want to call it, but it seemed to inspire hope in a lot of people, and it give them something positive, didn't it? It was a real, a lot of 70s movies are pretty downbeat, and even if you're thinking about some of the science fiction stuff, that looks pretty good actually, technologically speaking. Silent Running, it's 1972, for example. It's oh goodness, and 2001, 1968. They're not screaming with optimism, if you see what I mean. Especially Silent Running, that environmental kind of the film with Bruce Dern and the three wee robots, Huey, Dewey, and Louie. But yeah, it caused. I think it really did. It was something that America certainly needed. It was such an upbeat thing, and again, it maintained that Empire Strikes Back was pretty dark, and then Return of the Jedi, yeah, and it especially ends with a big, the la, da, 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 party time. It's everybody, lay down your worries, and everything's better, isn't it? It's a very traditional. There's a lot of traditional storytelling, I think, in Star Wars, but mythological and from fairy tales, etc. too. But yeah, um, yeah, it had different effects, I suppose. And I'd argue within the United Kingdom, if you understand Evil Empire and the rebels, then it also inspired people to kind of act like rebels and blow things up and shoot people more. I suppose to get rid of the evil empire. I don't think it didn't help. I suppose the Northern Ireland conflict much. As people are affected by things, or inspired by them. But there we go. Yeah, I'll tell you one that I have seen, folks. If you're looking for, and I was going, should I keep it to science fiction? But I'll go. Can I argue it's science fiction? I went with yes, under the excuse me, under the grounds of alternative reality. Um, just last night they were finished watching. If anybody hasn't seen it, if you want a good film recommendation, the unbearable weight of massive talent is is exceptionally good and very, very funny, and I really enjoyed it. And it's just kind of a good old giggle from Nicolas Cage that I could do with it the minute. I really enjoyed it. Matt, yes, yeah, it's like today. We don't believe in heroes. Tony Soprano, Walter White. Like we only believe people can be different shades of grey or dark. I miss optimism. Well, have you read Voltaire's Candide or Optimism? Is the good question there, Matt. That'll make seriously reconsider optimism. But yeah, I miss it too. I can be quite pessimistic, but I tend to offer both shades. I think I can go to where things will get really bad, and I can go to where they'll get really good, and often what's going to happen will be somewhere in between, I suppose. But yeah, we have shows, I suppose, over here. We've had Peaky Blinders recently, which I suppose involves certain organisations that are in Northern Ireland, and I suppose we've heard a revival of some of the songs, if you like, paramilitary songs from that TV show. I've heard them in shops here in this town. People, the paramilitary singing them out loud, nice and proud, because it's on a popular TV show on the BBC. And the kids are getting their haircuts, and they're also singing, the paramilitary songs that the BBC shows them. It's quite bizarre. We don't believe in heroes. Tony Soprano, Walter White. Like we can only believe people can be different shades of grey or dark. I miss optimism. I suppose that's one of those things. What where's your great heroes? Everyone. I suppose the heroes, an interesting thing throughout the ages, but yeah, you kind of miss your sort of, your Galahads and your. I suppose the one thing I would think, Matt, though, I have to say that if you look at any, this is something I always point out. If you look at any of the great heroic myths from, say, ancient Greece, take your pick of any of them: Perseus, Heracles, Jason, Achilles, any of them. Um, Arguably, most of them aren't that nice, and they get their fill in the end. If you see, I mean, that things never end well for these people. Um, Unfortunately, Jason and the Argonauts, for example, if you've seen Jason and the Argonauts, the film, it kind of ends with a Jason and Medea sailing off, and they've got the golden fleece and into the sunset. Where hey, it's got the most horrific ending, and Jason's just an asshole. Really, he's a hero in the moment, but when it comes to family life and love and marriage and raising your kids, not so much, And he's actually killed by his own ship. If you want to know, in a wave of self pity, he sits down next to the Argo, and its keel falls on his head and crushes him. So it is one of those interesting things that even, I suppose, the Arthurian and Germanic heroes, But yeah, I'll tell you who I like as a hero. Optimism. If what you're talking about, Sun Wukong, I think, is probably my favorite. The Monkey King. Now, there's a hero with there's a hero to believe in, a hero with arguably eternal optimism, and a great sense of humor, and someone to be absolutely, even though he's absolutely chaotic, someone to be admired, I think. I think most Americans have no idea what the red right hand is. I like Peaky Blinders, but I got sort of tired of watching the main character hurt everyone around him, which I guess became the point. Yeah, there's only so much violence that you can take, I suppose, and to watch even if it's a drama, to watch someone despair and fall into that sort of sense of violent behavior, and I think something, the point is actually made that wars create people like that. You can take a young lad from the street, send him off to war, and that's what returns. I've watched it up until the most. I know that this is the last season has just come out, and I have watched it, but I've been thinking about it. When the red right hand is, depends on which flag you're talking about, Matt. There's right hand and left hand one. So if I turn I will not do it actually, to be honest with you, but if I turn the camera and point it out of my window. I have closed left fists, terrorist flags. I have right hands on terrorist flags, and we have I suppose, the unofficial Northern Irish flag, which is St George's Cross with a red hand and a star in the middle. And but we have a variety of them around where I'm at right now. And again, in terms of there's relations to do with the red hand, or just actually hands in general within mythology, etc. But the right hand is oh goodness, let me see, get my brain onto it. It's the right hand of God and the left hand of God, Sinister and Dexter, if you like. Excuse me. So there is an association with in our over here, Matt. There's an association with heraldry, and it would be from one of the old what you would call, I suppose, Irish Norman families. So we're going back to the Norman invasion here. And then it's become a sort of an association with the idea of Ulsterhood. There's a thing to do with is it Muad'Dib, the silver hand, loses his hand, and the idea that a king without a hand, by the way, in mythology, if you're going to choose a high king can't have a blemish in Irish mythology. So this is losing your hand as a reason for not becoming high king, if you like. But yeah, again, we were talking a wee bit about it in the June Book Club, actually, because we've ended the most recent chapter with the review of the hand. Again, whether the hand is open, closed fist, for example, there's various associations, and again, whether it's the right hand or the left hand. So if you kind of looked into, I suppose, the red hand of Ulster is what we call it. If you had a wee look at that on Wikipedia, but if you looked at sort of loyalist paramilitary groups or terrorist groups, you'll see their various flags and associations, and each one of them will have a hand or fist of red color, pretty much. It's interesting. I was funny enough, because I was actually thinking about Dan Dare the other day, and when he returned to 2000 AD, and down there he ends up with this cosmic claw. But the hand, I suppose, is also, it's a symbol of agency, and that acting, it is the hand or fist of God, if you like. So it's meant to represent divine agency as well, divine power. So there we go. But yeah, it's, as I said, we don't believe in heroes. June, I suppose, is a warning against heroes, but that villains are seldom all bad, I suppose. You know what I mean? It's a bit like, Northern Ireland. If you can argue that the place is full of terrorists, and then you can ask, well, what's a terrorist? And it's probably just an ordinary person. Ultimately, sadly, that they're not anything out of the ordinary. Or they just sooner or later they make a decision to try and enforce their political will on people by random slaughter. That's what a terrorist is to me. But it's one of those things. But yeah, again, what you're talking about there, we're talking about heroes. We've got really Ben Reich is no hero. Noodles, you okay, love? It's all right. It's okay. That's just Buddy outside. I go say hello. Sorry, the dogs are barking a wee bit. But where we have Gully Foyle, and we're talking about him and Tiger. Gully Foyle is a killer and a rapist, and he's your hero. And you're sort of carried along with him on this journey. And initially, he's sympathetic, isn't he? You go, oh no, what a series of bad things to happen to this guy. You start off, he's got your sympathy. He's a nothing, and he's been left to die. What's this about? By the middle of the book, he's a bit of a monster, and you're kind of he's uncomfortable to read. He's a fascinating character. I'm not even sure, can we call him the hero? Is he even a protagonist? And by the end of it, there's some kind of redemption and the possibility that he'll become more, if you see what I mean. This one, right out, this guy's a villain. You're the guy that you're following right along, and he's almost the opposite of. We're talking about why the Demolished Man and Tiger are worth reading together, because if we think about it, he's almost an exact opposite to Foyle, and it reminds me, Gully Foyle is the lowest of the low, who ends up really, as I said, I call it a catabasis. He goes into hell, emerges from it, almost worse, but eventually there is some kind of redemption, whatever you want to call it. But he evolves, doesn't he? He becomes more than what he has been. He has truly evolved. What we have in the Demolished Man is arguably arguably about a point in evolution where we have a character who is the richest of the rich, the most powerful of the power. We're going to watch him fall all the way, and we're going to watch him take himself on this journey. It's the two books really do give an interesting sort of balance in this kind of character study, because again, I think I called Tiger. It's a bit of a fanfare for the common man. But if Gully Foyle is the common man, what does that say about it? And that he's the tiger. Reminds me of Zorba the Greek. Goodness, that's going back a while. What is it reminds you of Zorba the Greek? Sorry, Matt, just a wee bit of context. Sorry, but got it. Sorry, just me trying to catch up there in my brain. Yeah, characters like this. That I think it's one of the reasons why we're not used to our hero being a hero. Alfred Bester's two books in the 50s really do something to knock, I think, what we would call the Van Votian hero quite hard on its head. But they're arguably either of them heroes. I don't know. And again, I think it's something that is quite influential. I've talked about the influence of Tiger on other science fiction being astonishing, but these type of characters, where our heroes are not really, they're certainly interesting characters. Whether you can call them heroes or not, that's another thing. I was thinking about some other books there, and I'm not too sure, but the Severian, for example, in oh goodness, what do we call it? Book of the New Sun. As another character like this, I think. I think I was thinking about the videos that we've made so far, and we've gone with Pelopids. We've done a boy and his dog, and then we went to Tiger. And so both, if you want to take, we're trying to do an A to Z of science fiction, just to bring up, just to give us a structure to work with, really. And arguably, so far we've looked at characters who are Vic and Blood. Are two of my favorite characters from science fiction. They're not nice people at all. You know, there's a line in that movie in which he brags about being a killer and a rapist for my country as part of explaining why he is somehow wise. And of course, we are meant to be fascinated by Zorba and wonder if he knows secrets of getting the sweetness out of life that most rule followers do not. Very good, Matt. Thank you. Yeah. It's also one of these things, by the way, that where I don't know how to put this. I suppose I'll give you the comments that I've had. I've had some. You read these comments about, I'm not. Someone says I'm not going to read this book because the character's a rapist. I'm not going to read this book because the author, the one that I found quite astonishing recently, was the author's committed suicide. And the reasons that we've got characters that are uncomfortable. They're supposed to be, that and there are people like this in real life. I mean, not maybe to these extremes, but there are all sorts of people out there, and often, as I think somebody pointed out, a novel is a considered thing. Characters are developed and written a certain way to appear a certain way, and it's quite right that a villain should be possibly unpalatable, but more often not, villainy doesn't work that way. And it is the idea that we're all sort of shades of something, that there's no white or black, that we're all no good or evil, we're all just somewhere in between. And I'm trying to think, but we even have characters. We go back a bit. We were talking about the Greek heroes. They're wow, they're heroic, and each one of them kind of has their own unique thing, if you see what I mean. But they're not. Yeah, they're Achilles, for example, is often referred to as a dog. In the Iliad, he's the greatest killer, and he's respected as such, but nobody really likes him. He's a dog among and which is quite sad. I think it's one of those things where it depends on how cultures refer to dogs, but I think there's nothing wrong with dogs. What you're saying there, Matt, I was having a quick nosy the other day because it was you had asked me about it. I'd love to hear you analyze Sid Meier's Alpha Centauri. There's an old blog called Peen to Smack. Then I think I'll write that down. I was actually looking at the game because I don't have a strategy game to play, and I do have it on a DVD, CD maybe downstairs somewhere. So I was thinking about reinstalling it. Peen to Smack. I need to get organized with things that I'm supposed to look at. Peen to Smack. An old blog called Peen Smack that I think would fascinate you, says Matt. I love how every character in that game can be played straight or subverted. True, Achilles probably isn't somebody anybody really wants to be. He's not in good control of himself. No. Achilles is pretty interesting, but not someone to be admired. I think the choice of Achilles is an interesting one. Do you want long life and happiness? But no one will ever know who you are, or short life and fame everlasting. Odysseus is your man for I don't know, but again, Odysseus is I think is of all the Greek heroes. Excuse me, of all the Greek heroes, he's probably the most admirable, I would think. And Odysseus's great skill is excuse me, deceit. He's a very deceitful chap. He's very clever. I think I would. Sorry, my throat just totally went there, folks. I think I would describe him as it's a kind of deceitful cunning and intelligence, but he's man who uses his brains, but it's often often through deceit, if you like, the tricks, if you like. I've heard Odysseus is nobody. Very good. He is indeed. In Greek, Excuse me, I'll have a wee sip again here. My throat just took a real thingy there. La 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 la. Right, let's try. Excuse me. Yeah. Let me see if I can remember this correctly, Matt. So Odysseus and the Cyclops, who's called Polyphemus, I believe. Whenever he meets him, he asks him, "Who is he?" And he tells him his name is Oitis, which in Greek is nobody. And of course, the Latin version of that is Nemo. So if you're Oitis or nobody, you're Odysseus. But it is indeed nobody, that's correct. And of course, then when him and his men are escaping, and the Polyphemus summons all the other Cyclops, he's been blinded, and they all go, "Who did this to you?" And Odysseus and his men, and he goes, "Nobody did it, nobody." And they went, "Okay," and they just walk away rather than taking revenge on. It's a yeah. The Odyssey is a great read if anybody hasn't read it. Probably you could consider it the original fantasy novel if you like, but it's a fantastic read. Influence on European all sorts of literature. But it's a really good read. I think for anybody who's now a bit scared of going near things like the Iliad and the Odyssey, and there's the Homeric hymns are quite short, but they're not everybody's tastes. And there's also Hesiod's Theogony, if you want to. He's a contemporary of Homer. And excuse me, there's one other which is called oh goodness, can I say this correctly? The Batrachiomyomachia. Batrachiomyomachia. Oh, hang on. My Greek. Right, let's have a look. Let me see if I can get this right. The Batrachiomyomachia, is that it? Oh. That was Russell. He's going bonkers here. Batrachiomyomachia. Let's see. No, not that one. There we go. Right. The Batrachiomyomachia. Oh, it did all right. Well done, me. Okay. Yay. There we go. So one more time for anybody, if you go with it phonetically, it's the Batrachiomyomachia. It's all one word. And of course, this is the battle between the mice and frogs, which is a good fun kind of kids version of the Iliad. But yeah, if you're wanting to read the Iliad, the Odyssey, these kind of things, get a good if you're not too into the full on someone attempting to recreate dactylic hexameter or anything like that, get just a good translation that's a prose translation, and they're good fun to read. I think I think schools really should be more courageous about teaching the Bible as a basis for literature too. In the West, everything comes out of the Bible, Shakespeare and Homer. I'd argue in my country it's more the Bible and Shakespeare. Virtually nobody reads Homer. You can't study classical studies, Matt, in Northern Ireland or Ireland at university level. It's viewed as an elite education. Simple as that. Which is sad. I don't know, the things that I sort of brought up here, the stuff that I kind of read in school. There's a hint of empire about it, that kind of thing, but it would be things like Robinson Crusoe. But I remember being taught The Charge of the Light Brigade as a poem, by Tennyson, and very much, not really, not that this is because it's a piece of propaganda for a massacre, a slaughter, if you know what I mean. There's always been that kind of slant on it. But for me, it's very different now, but for me, the books that I would have read in certainly primary school would be things like The Adventures of Robin Hood, Robinson Crusoe, Swallows and Amazons, things like that. I read The Hobbit in secondary school, my first year of secondary school. Let me see. But yeah, no, they're very keen on the Bible here. And almost all schools in Northern Ireland, in fact, I'm just going to say it, all schools are sectarian. You'll hear this thing about integrated education in Northern Ireland, but it's all that means is that we're putting Catholics and Protestants together. And there is no thought of removing religion from our schools, which they should, because Unfortunately, there's a cycle of, if you want to draw a big Venn diagram and call it Christianity, you can fit all our terrorists and terror groups all inside that, and whether it be Catholic or Protestant or whatever, the Venn diagram is religion, really. This is quite sad, but yeah, no, our schools are in dire straits. I tutor English privately, Matt, and I could even tell you, the kids just hate reading here. They hate it, and when I even for secondary school, I'll give you a good example. I had a pretty good balance of going from novels, plays, poems, all of that. But the balance was in that I'd say half of them were tragedies, but we did a fair share of comedy, things that made you laugh, light-hearted stuff. And as there should be a balance like that. The GCSE and A level courses here, the happiest book I could find is, well, it depends on what you want to think is happy, is Dracula. I think that's the most light-hearted book. But everything's just, apart from Dracula and Frankenstein, which let's just call them gothic horrors, and they're great for that. They're taken into the world of adventure. Everything else is tragic and miserable, and has a unhappy ending, and is just an absolute misery. There's no relief. For the kids that are studying English at school, you need a bit of pathos with your pathos. I was jealous when I heard Watchmen and Jurassic Park have made it into essential reading in schools. Watchmen, as in the graphic novel, excellent. Jurassic Park, Michael Crichton novel, I think. I'm not too sure. Quite possibly. Not too sure. Yeah, essential reading. I don't know. There's so many good, particularly I suppose a lot of children's literature from the turn of the century. You arguably call it fantasy these days, wouldn't you? The fantastical stuff's great, but you don't see kids reading Peter Pan or Peter Pan and Wendy or goodness, all of these kind of things. Have you ever tried Romance of the Three Kingdoms, the Chinese epic? I'm fascinated by that. No, Matt, I haven't. You can probably see behind me up there. That's Journey to the West. No, I'd actually had copies of Journey to the West and Outlaws of the Marsh, and I gave them to someone as a gift. And believe it or not, originally I had to fly to Amsterdam to buy those books in the days before the internet really took off. So I used to buy my Chinese literature, believe it or not, from Beijing Press, from a bookshop in Amsterdam, and I would fly there for them. So my wife replaced those ones for me as a present, because I'm really looking forward to reading Journey to the West again. Pardon me. So of the four cornerstones of Chinese literature, if you like, I've read two, and I haven't read that one, and I haven't read the other. So it's the two that I've read, are Journey to the West, which I highly recommend to anyone who loves fantasy literature. Just, you've got 4 volumes. Hang on, I'll just grab it here. We were talking about heroes there, and who's the best. Who's a great hero. Sun Wukong is a great hero. The Monkey King. There we go. Arg. There he is, by the way. Oh, hang on. Let me see if I can do that properly. There is the Monkey King himself, Sun Wukong. Check him out on Wikipedia if you're not familiar with the character. He's a great sage, equal of heaven, master of vacuity. Is he aware of the 72 transformations? He's hilarious, and he represents mankind. So that just to show you, these are beautiful. These are from Beijing Press, and you can get them on Amazon now. There's no need for me to fly to Amsterdam. But the complete epic, there we go, in 4 different volumes. This is by Wu Chang-en, who was a Chinese civil servant, and he wrote this, I think, out of boredom. And it is wonderfully funny and a delight, an absolute delight. Volume 1, they're quite good thick books, and I know there's probably lots of different editions, but the writing is a wee bit small, but it's okay for me. And they come with they're illustrated as well, which is something I used to love about all the old Robin Hood books and Robinson Crusoes and stuff. There's actually a very famous illustrator from Coleraine who used to illustrate a lot of those books, and Hugh Thompson's his name. Let me just right spelling of it. Yes, Hugh Thompson. There we go. Let me just copy that over. There we are. If you want to have a wee look up at his work, illustrations, really, really good. The town hall in Korean runs an exhibition of his work. I'm born in Korean, that's where I'm from. And yeah, very interesting career. And some, I kind of grew up seeing this man's illustrations on certain stories and so on and so forth. And you probably have seen them before. Amongst the selected works, he would have done all sorts of things there. Kentucky Cardinal. There it is. Tom Brown's School Days, for example. Yeah. But a really good. I'm pretty sure he was the illustrator on the Robin Hood copy of the Tales of Robin Hood that I read as a kid. But yeah, so yeah, sorry, very quickly. That's Journey to the West. There's also, you can get the late 70s, early TV series Monkey Magic is very good, but you're getting your money's worth. Wu Chang is 1500 to 1582. That's his dates. And attached to a number of illustrations drawn during the Qing Dynasty, I believe is how you pronounce that. So I don't have a copy of Outlaws of the Marsh anymore, which is also known as the Water Margin. And its other name is, and again, if you love fantasy, sword and sorcery, this kind of thing, it's actually meant to be historically, there's a historical element to it. It's also known as the Tale of 108 Heroes and One Bad Man, who is I believe, Gao Chu. Great stuff. Interesting what you're saying about, by the way, heroes. The 108 heroes. I think I've said that there's one of them is got my favorite name for a female character ever, and she's got two. Well, depending on what translation you get, she's either known as 10 feet of steel, or 10 feet of blue, which is what a great name. And let me see. But there's another character. Talk about things, distasteful things that heroes do, if you like. There's another character in that one of the 108 who's called Lai Ku, and he's known as the Black Whirlwind. He fights with two black axes, and he's a nasty piece of work and a child murderer. Again, not a nice guy. Some of the 108 are great, some of them not so much. They're all meant to be reincarnated. Let me just catch up with you folks. But yeah, sorry, very quickly, the whole point was, no, I haven't, Matt, read those. I haven't read the Three Kingdoms. And what's the other one? Is it? Oh, hang on. Let me see, very quickly. The four great classical novels of Chinese literature. There we go. So the ones that we've been talking about, the two that I've read, are what's known as the Water Margin or the Outlaws of the Marsh, and then Journey to the West, which is the Sun Wukong epic. And the other two are the Romance of the Three Kingdoms and the Dream of the Red Chamber. So, and they all come in multi-volume sets like that. So, yeah, it's just haven't got around to it, and it was absolutely cornerstones of Chinese literature. Halfway through, Matt. I'm really looking forward to getting just as soon as I get them sometime. Never get time to read. Jurassic Park, I think, fascinating. But yeah, they're great. I don't know what you think about those books, Matt, if you've read any of them, but they're great. And if the other two, Three Kingdoms and the Garden of Red Stone? Oh, can't remember that at all. Hang on. Just to get it right, the Dream of the Red Chamber and the Romance of the Three Kingdoms. Yeah, if they're as good as Journey to the West and the Water Margin, then they'll be a fantastic read. You might have seen a lot of the characters from from Journey to the West with the Chinese Olympics. Monkey King and Pigsy, etc. But they're really, it's a very funny book as well, and it's the story of really the what it's about really is I suppose about the bringing of the Buddhist scriptures from India to China. It's like a pilgrimage. It's really good though. Let's catch up. But if anybody checks out Hugh Thompson, Jurassic Park, I think, really deserves our attention right now. It's a bit of a morality tale. It's what was it? That 2000 AD, years and years and years ago, had a story called Flesh, which is very similar. But it had an interesting time travel component, and it ties into Judge Dredd's universe, where they reckon the dinosaurs go extinct, so let's go back in time and farm them for meat, which is a pretty good idea, I thought. Jurassic Park, a bit of a morality tale. Well, it is a bit, I suppose. I read a nephew's homework during the summer holidays. Bible quotes, let's see, Torah perhaps more properly, with words missing. This required the wee man to pick up his Bible and then find the passage. Brad says, morning, all morning, Brad. How's it going, mate? Hope you're keeping well. Hugh Thompson, Captain Badminton. Anyone like a bit of Raymond E. Feist? And dig fighting fantasy. I'll give you. Yes, I love. I really liked Raymond E. Feist for quite some time, but I have to say, Captain Badminton, he's the guy that killed fantasy for me. And I think it was Rise of a Merchant Prince. But in terms of if anybody wants it, I mean, they're really good books. The first three, don't know what you would call them, mid-chemia novels. So Magician, Silverthorn, and A Darkness at Sathanan are really good. And he wrote another book around at that time called Fairy Tale, which I think it's him, which I thought was very good. And then he did sort of three other mid-chemia books, kind of from the is it the tsunami? I can't remember what you call them, the alien race in it. And I thought they were quite good. And then we were kind of I think the reason I chucked Rise of a Merchant Prince across the room, because if that was the book, I think it was. It's basically the story of Lloyd's of London. And I was just I know that story. And I just winged it and just went, naughty boy, I'm not happy with you. And I was having a hard time trying to find anything interesting in fantasy at the time. And I think that's the book. It just got me into reading more epics and myths and realizing that a lot of fantasy regurgitates a lot of the same stuff. But they were very good books and I really enjoyed them. Fighting Fantasy, the first book that we talked about, what set me off on my journey was my Puffin Book Club purchase of Arthur C. Clarke's Of Time and Stars. I bought 3 books when I was a little kid from that book club, and the other two were Stompy the Bear, which was a bit young for me, I think, and Forest of Doom. Excuse me. Captain Badminton. So Forest of Doom was and I still have it, by the way, and I think it might even be here somewhere. And recently I did all the old, do you remember the Lone Wolf books? I have them on my phone, and I was able to go through all of those. I really like them. Very much into Dungeons and Dragons, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, fighting fantasy books for years. Yeah, and you get them at the local library. They were absolutely brilliant. And I think are they having a revival? I'm not too sure, but Steve Jackson's Sorcery. There was another one that was a kind of it was actually like a rule book for like those fighting fantasy books, called Maelstrom, I believe, and it was meant to be like a little rule book that allowed you to role play in that world. But yeah, really good. And what great, fighting fantasy books, choose your own adventure. They're great things for kids, I think. Playing a game while you're reading. I have actually got a few of them recently out of nostalgia. Played them and then taken them back to the same secondhand bookshop, But they're great. They're brilliant. Yeah. If you've only they've been around a long time, I remember, Steve, it's my birthday and I'm in COVID lockdown. I'm so sorry to hear that, Brad. Happy birthday. Congratulations. I hope you've got preparations, if you see it. I mean, you've got your plenty of fluids for your birthday bash, I hope you're having a bit of a party and enjoying yourself if you're locked in, mate. But happy birthday, sir. Dear. Maybe do something for your birthday. Maybe play a tune or something. I'm no good at playing happy birthday, though. Captain Badminton says, I've only just discovered fighting fantasy books on Steam. Great fun with a selection of bed tracks while you play. Check out, if you look at the old, is it Joe Deaver? Was it Lone Wolf? Lone Wolf books. Not Lone Wolf and Cub now. This is hang on, with adventure books. Yeah, that Flight from the Dark. Yeah, you put a bit of Magnum and Home Guard Press. Let me just check a look. There you go. Let me get you this is the web address. Oh, these are taking me back. There you go. That's for all the, did that appear there? There you go. That's the link for Joe Deaver's Lone Wolf. And I think you can get a bunch of the books there for free, possibly. Oh, no, that's somebody selling them. But I'll give you an idea about the books. I can tell you that they're around the web somewhere for free, because I downloaded a bunch of them to my phone. And I'm on the last one, actually, on my phone. So there you go. Not that I ever download anything to my phone. Let's see. Is Books with Johnny Wirtz or the Pinnacle? Is that hang on. Let's see. I think Raymond Eve, is he still going strong? That's the ones. Thank you. I couldn't quite remember the Empire trilogy. Let me see what. Yeah, Daughter of the Empire, Servant of the Empire, Mistress of the Empire. I thought they were very good. And yeah, that really did get a. What are they called? That Kellowan. What was their name? Surinani. That was it. The Surinani. What did I say? Tsunami. Yeah, got very much a Japanese kind of samurai vibe all that time, but those were quite good. Let me just have a wee quick look at the Rift Wars cycle. So where are we? Is that what it's called? Yeah, they were very D&D, I suppose, aren't they? Goodness gracious, how many? So the Rift Wars saga, right? There's several books. Right, so Magician Silverthorn, Darkness at Sathanan, Daughter of Empire, Servant of the Empire, Mistress of the Empire, Prince of the Blood, and the King's Buccaneer. I think that's the two. One of those two was the last one. It might have been the King's Buccaneer. Rise. What did I say? Oh, no, it wasn't. Sorry. No, I kept going. It was Rise of a Merchant Prince. Sorry. What have we got? Rage of a Demon King. And a whole bunch more. Wow, he's been, he's churning them out. That's the thing that puts me off fantasy literature. Sadly, is just it just goes on and on and on. You always want to get on to something new, and it is nice to return to an author's world. But I love a good ending to something. But yeah, they were very, very good. I really enjoyed Magician, and the reason why I bought it when I was a little kid was a maximum value for money. Simple as that. It was the thickest book I could get for the least money, and I loved it. Yeah, so very, very good. But I just haven't stayed with the series, unfortunately. I wouldn't probably stay with a series that long, But yeah, the books with Johnny Wirtz, where it's kind of a crossover onto the other world, I thought that was quite good, and it was an interesting, give you a different viewpoint, didn't it? The best, let's see, where are we? The best, Matt says, the best fantasy books I've ever read were the King Killer Chronicles. I also like A Song of Ice and Fire, but more because it has a lot of fighting. Captain, a new fighting fantasy came out in the last year or so, written by Terry Pratchett's daughter. Aha, excellent. Somebody had informed me as well, by the way, that as much as I didn't get an opportunity to this year, that World Towel Day is also Lilac Day, and I didn't understand the reference, but it's to do with Alzheimer's and Terry Pratchett. So something to get onto the calendar for next year. That's I'd happily, must check that out. But I was I'll get around to his love TP. King Killer Chronicles. I suppose fantasy. I've read a lot. I mean, I like the original Shannara series, the first three, when that came out. Lord of the Rings, of course. Let's have a look. King Killer Chronicles. No, I don't know those at all. And that's the kind of thing I got diverted. I kind of ended up in the I've read a few fantasy books, and I have read all of the Song of Ice and Fire books. Recently, again, I got into Game of Thrones, enjoyed the show up until the end, and find it highly derivative, actually. But I'm trying to think of something that, particularly outstanding fantasy books. I mean, I would have read a lot of the old, the Dungeons and Dragons books, even what do you call them? Things like the Dragonlance books. You know, I was a kid, so I would have devoured stuff like that for a long time. But I tell you what, Dagger Spell. There was a couple of books that came out that I kind of got into. Lost track of these authors over the years, and I really enjoyed them. And the first one of these would have been a novel called Dagger Spell by Catherine Kerr. It says it's the first novel in the Celtic-themed multi-reincarnational Devery cycle. Oh goodness! So I read a few of those. Let me see if I can just bring up the Devery cycle. DEVERRY. Celtic fantasy novels. Wow, there's tons of them. I think I read about the first 4, maybe just the first 2 actually. Not too sure. Definitely read Dagger Spell and Dark Spell. And I thought they were quite good, but it looks like you're jumping into an enormous series again. And oh goodness, what was it? Moorwood. Sorry, I'm a person who loves engaging there. There he is, Peter Moorwood. Just thinking about things that you used to read. He's a Star Trek writer. Let's have a wee look. He wrote something that I quite enjoyed and never. It was, I think, part of a trilogy. Yeah. Oh no, hang on. Widowmaker, Tales of Old Russia, Star Trek, Mind Blast, Keep It the City. Oh, no, it must have been. I think it's there. The Horse Lord, the Demon Lord, the Dragon Lord, and the Warlord's Domain. I quite enjoyed, and I didn't. There's a 4th novel there that I haven't read, and they were just something a little bit different. But in terms of the fantasy stuff, really, Michael Moorcock, really, I think for me, I would have read an awful lot of his stuff. I would have read a lot of the Dungeons and Dragons type fiction, fantasy books, anything like that. And I do have little gaps and kind of stuff that I haven't read, I suppose. But yeah, it's favorites are fair. The Spell Singer series was one that I really enjoyed. I think I had about 5 or 6 books. But kind of when it went to Son of Spell Singer, I read it as well, but I thought, no, we're done here. That was Alan Dean Foster. They're kind of a science fiction fantasy crossover kind of thing. They're just good fun, if you see what I mean. I have to say, I do have probably a bunch of fantasy books about here. I must have a wee consideration of them. But we don't think about them too much. But I think of things like Jason and the Argonauts, and stuff like that. I think of as kind of fantasy books in a funny way, I suppose. So I would read an awful lot of myths and epics, and I try to actually get to the original stories, And again, a lot of people would get things like these and take one look at the language and run. And translations are everything, but there are so many great epics and sagas out there, and they're, even if you think about, so we're talking about Dungeons and Dragons there as well, Yeah, it's interesting thing. So I'm just going to backtrack a wee bit because I think I might have missed a couple of comments there. Where do we go to? Captain Badminton. I just discovered fighting fantasy books on Steam. Yeah, great fun with the selection of bed tracks while you play. Yeah, it's funny enough, I've just been I've now got one of these things for the first time ever. My son has decided that he doesn't want his Kindle. Excuse me. I've loaded it up with science fiction and a few other different things. Let's see. Matt S was here we go. Matt S was saying, I've only started on the Romance of the Three Kingdoms. I read mostly non-fiction these days. I do some of my own science fiction writing in the Alpha Centauri universe. Otherwise, I get my literary kick from you. Thank you very much, Matt. That's quite cool. Yeah, I seem to remember. Yeah, I'm going to have to take a wee look at it again. I enjoyed the game very much. So the different factions, I seem to remember you can, I don't know, do all sorts of things to your population if you want to go down that road. I did enjoy it. It's but it's been a wee while because I was playing Civilization, I think 5 maybe for a wee while, and did enjoy it. But I do like games like that. But they can take up your time, can't they? Bojack saying, sorry to hear that, Brad. Yeah, sorry to hear you're in lockdown, Brad, and happy birthday, Brad, from Matt. Brad, thanks, Bojack. This will be the most socializing I do today. It's been almost the most I've done in a long time, Brad. His books with oh yes, there we go. So I did miss a couple of wee comments. Apologies about that, folks. The best fantasy books I've ever read with the King Killer. I haven't read those, Matt. I have to say I have a real strong preference in terms of I really like Conan, the Conan stories by Robert E. Howard. I really like the Elric series. I quite like the Corum series by Michael Moorcock as well. I'm just trying to, yeah, I'll have a wee think about that for next time. We'll maybe even do, suppose that we're talking about all sorts of genre fiction. We should really put together a wee list of the different fantasies. I've got my old Dungeons and Dragons books just down here on my left. I was watching Stranger Things there the other week and enjoying it. I've just got to the end of where it's at, and it's, I suppose it's left it at a point, and it's not going to give you the last 2 episodes to the 1st of July, I think. But I've been enjoying that show. And it kind of not that I it does remind me of the kids on their bikes cycling around to each other's houses to play Dungeons and Dragons, Advanced D&D. It reminds me of my own childhood a wee bit, So it's a very good show, I have to say. But yeah, sorcery. There's all sorts of fighting fantasy sort of type stuff, but I think the fighting fantasy ones were very consistent. But yeah, if Terry Pratchett's daughter's got a new fighting fantasy book, that might be something we can have a look at and maybe even do a review or something for the station. But yeah, I'm not sure that magnumon.com for the old lone wolves, etc. I think those are quite expensive, really nicely done books. But the original fighting fantasy book, the lone wolf books were really good, I think. And the art was quite good in it and stuff as well. Kind of rolled along with things like White Dwarf magazine and Dragon magazine, Lone Wolf. Raymond books got a bit too much after a while. Serpent More, Demon More, etc. Yeah, you know what? If you love a particular universe and you love a particular writer and he keeps churning them out, why not? It's a thing that's been done many a time. It's just I think the more an author does that, the more diluted their ideas get, and I think their core ideas and their world building are quite strong. So I thought the initial, as you'd say, Captain Badminton, the first 3 Rift War books and the second 3 with Johnny Words, I thought were really good. And I think almost my favorite of them all would have been Silverthorn. I really enjoyed that. It was a wee bit different than all the others, wasn't it? If anyone is a gamer, then Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind is an absolute must. True RPG with a lore that is vague enough to impose your own role-playing over the top. Brad saying The Prisoner of Zenda. Excuse me. Speaking of computer RPGs, I thought Fallout New Vegas was surprisingly engaging. I haven't played that one in a while. Yeah, I did. I love Fallout 3. And it's a very enjoyable game, Fallout 3. I never got Fallout 4, I have to say. Sadly, I don't know, it might have been good, but I just thought I'd enjoyed Fallout 3 that much. I'm just, and I played the Las Vegas, and yeah, very good. And I even had some mods in it. I suppose ultimately I went on to Skyrim, didn't I? The Elder Scrolls. That was quite good. Jason the Argonauts from 1963 is still a creepy movie to this day. The animated Achilles statue sequence is nerve-wracking. It's the big bronze statue. That's Talos. He's a real thing from Greek mythology, if that's what you're talking about. Yeah, it's even the, what do you call it? The I don't know what's the term for. Hang on a wee second. Hang on. I'll get. Let's see. Well, I was just going to go with the ship's mast figurine, I suppose. What is of Athena, isn't it? That's quite weird, but it's a very Ray Harryhausen film, I suppose, isn't it? But yeah, it's I quite enjoy it actually. I have it on DVD. But a lot of those ones, the skeletons fighting, that's great stuff. I love old movies like that, though. Particularly, I love the Ray Harryhausen stop motion animation. I don't know. I think sometimes modern audiences look at these things and they go, "That looks rubbish. I'm not watching this." And they do these films a great disservice, I think. It's the same with black and white films. It's like, oh, I'm not going to watch a black and white film. It's just, you know. But yeah, it's seldom they get these things right, I suppose. And it's I'd argue that to sort of take any material from Greek mythology and kind of turn it into, if you wanted to be pretty accurate, it would be pretty monstrous and horrific. It would be a full-on, apologies. I thought as Jason beat the statue by cracking open the heel meant it was Achilles. No, that's another. Well, it's a recurring motif, isn't it? I think not at all. It's I dare say most people wouldn't know who it is. Let me see. Very quickly, let's have a look. Talon in Greek mythology. Let's see, where will we go? Science and technology. Come on. See also. Oh, maybe I'm thinking of something else. He's a big bronze man, isn't he? No, I'm not finding him here at all. Bear with me a wee second. Okay, what do we need? We want Apollodorus, not to stand on any doggies. Let's see. Apollodorus. There we go. Talos. Hang on, I'm using the wrong name. Sorry, it's Talos, not Talon. Oh, that's why I'm not finding. Hang on. Sorry, I'm having a brain fart there, guys. Talos, isn't it? There we go. Right, just from Wikipedia, very quick. Apologies, folks, if my brain does that sometimes. It's not Talon. It's Talos, Talos, also spelled Talus. Is a giant automaton made of bronze to protect Europa in Crete from pirates and invaders. He circled the island shores 3 times daily. What have we got here? Within the Argonautica, Talos is usually said to be made by Hephaestus, the smith of the god, at the request of Zeus to protect Europa, the consort of Zeus, from people who would want to kidnap her. The most detailed treatment in literature is to be found in the Argonautica. However, detailed images of the episode 150 years earlier dated to around 400 BC. So he's a brass man who's forged by the god Hephaestus. There's different versions of the stories, as always. Talos had one vein which went from his neck to his ankle, bound shut by only one bronze nail. The Argo, transporting Jason and the Argonauts, approached Crete after obtaining the Golden Fleece. As guardian of the island, Talos kept the Argo at bay by hurling great boulders at it. According to Apollodorus, Talos was slain when Medea, the sorceress, either drove him mad with drugs or deceived him into believing that she would make him immortal by removing the nail. In the Argonautica, Medea is hypnotized him from the Argo, driving him mad with the Keres, the female death spirits, that she raised so that he dislodged the nail and the ichor ran out of him like molten lead, exsanguinating and killing him. Translator P. Green notes that the Argonautica's Talos story is somewhat reminiscent of the story of Achilles' heel. There we go. So absolutely no reason why you wouldn't think it was a statue of Achilles. So no need to apologize. But yeah, it's just one of those things. He's an interesting mechanical man, and this kind of thing do turn up in the myths quite a lot, But yeah, it's not a bad film. I have to say, I quite enjoy it, But yeah, and let me just see one very quickly while we're on the things. I think I'm going to need to get a bit better lighting in here, folks. We've had a bit of we've decorated, but now let me have a wee quick look just to see where we're at. I thought I'd put a couple of these wee things aside. But bear with me. Oh, there we go. Fantasy stories. There's the Arabian Nights again. Let me see. Class B game. What do we got? Put up on Voltaire's Candide. No, sorry. I actually thought that my fighting fantasy book was there. Excuse me. Whoa. Excuse me. There we go. Thought I might have put it somewhere with certain things, but yeah, no. Yeah, funny enough, I was having a wee read it. I kept thinking to myself, I know. I don't know if anybody's watching Stranger Things, and I was going, Vecna, I know that name from somewhere. And I had, let me see if I can reach it without going flying here. Where are we? There you go. I had the old Had the old Dungeon Master's Guide out, sitting pouring through this the other day, looking at all the old magical items and stuff that that are at the back or sort of in the middle, I suppose. All the wonderful little things that sort of you'll find in all sorts of mythological stories, and that's something that Dungeons and Dragons did very well. I think it's plundered a range of myths, to use for their rules. What was it? Hang on, I found it there the other day. I thought, was it the Eye of Vecna? There's the Wand of Orcus. Let me see. Bear with me a wee sec. There it is, the Eye of Vecna and the Hand of Vecna. And where are we? Hang on. There. I was just thinking that there. It's funny how you're sort of watching a TV series in 2020s and it's referencing a game you've been playing since you were a kid. But it was doing my nothing. I just knew that name from somewhere. Excuse me. But yeah, and there's, to be honest with you, if you know your Greek myths, there's lots of repetition within them, and some heroes are quite similar to others. If you see what I mean, You live and you learn. You're more than welcome. Coca-Cola vapes are quite tasty. Yummy. Ooh, don't vape. Prefer to smoke. I was disappointed in Stranger Things latest season, says Bojack. Captain Bannon says Stranger Things V4 is a good return to form. Still dragged in places, but a lot better than season 3. Well, season 2 were more like, they're a little bit more fun, weren't they? And I think the kids have grown up a bit. Gives it a bit of a slightly different thing. But I thought that this season was because they're like quite lengthy episodes. They're full 1 hour, I think, aren't they? Gets a little bit slow in places, but once it gets, you kind of have to stick with it. But I thought it kind of picked up pretty good. And I thought, I'll not spoil anything for anybody. Actually, once it got going, I really enjoyed this season. But I've enjoyed them all, but I haven't gone back and watched them, if you know what I mean. It would be quite an endeavor to sit through them all again. But I thought the actor playing number 1, I'll not give anything away, but I thought he was exceptionally good, whoever he is. I don't think I've seen him in anything, but I thought it was a performance. It reminded me on his performance reminded me a bit on Malcolm McDowell in A Clockwork Orange. I thought he's very, I think the actor has a really good future playing characters like that. If you see, again, really don't want to give anything away, very. I was quite impressed, and I was pushing on through, to try and watch the whole thing through to the end, and then I went, oh no, I've got a little bit of time to wait, and I thought, actually, do you know what? That's not a bad thing at all, is it? I think absorbing a TV show up to a point, and then you're going to have a climactic ending or something like that, but hang on for a few weeks till you see it. I think it's a really good idea. Eddie was a cool addition to Hellfire Club, dude. Yes, Hellfire Club from what do we call it? The Hounds of the Baskervilles, isn't it? One was a good creepy character. I think the way they've developed the character, kept certain things, I thought very, very good. Yeah, it's got everything, hasn't it? It's got I think it's got the right balance. I think it might be a little bit scary in places for some younger kids to watch, but yeah, I do enjoy it. I have to say it's been a good show. Eddie's looked like he's 30 years old. He doesn't look that young, does he? But yeah, cool additions. Yeah, it's a good show, I have to say. I think the actors, all the young actors ever, right from the very beginning, have been very, very good. And yeah, they're excellent, I have to say. Yeah, really enjoyable. If anybody's not caught it or not into Stranger Things, check it out. It's a good show. Definitely, I like it. Let me see. Did I get through everything there? But oh yeah, I was just going to have a wee quick chat about. I was saying we watched The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. If you want to call it an alternative reality Nicolas Cage film, I thought it was very, very good. Very, very good. Really enjoyed it. what was the other thing? Yeah, in terms of where we're at with the show, folks, I suppose in terms of doing wee videos, love doing this kind of engagement and chatting about anything to do with science fiction, fantasy, horror. I suppose my horror literature is really kind of fantastical stuff. It's kind of Edgar Allan Poe, Lovecraft, that's what I like. Dracula and Frankenstein, these kind of things. Not very much. Don't mind it in terms of films, I suppose, but it's not. I suppose that modern horror isn't a thing that I would read very much. See, bit like modern detective fiction. Don't read it too often. But just in terms of where we're at with the show, in terms of doing wee videos, we've started writing again, so we're getting our shit and our shit in action, if you know what I mean. Getting our shit into gear. Trying to mix my metaphors here. Getting our shit together. That's what I was looking for. Sorry. So we started writing an episode. We're going to do an episode on Ian Banks and the culture. And somebody was mentioning let's see. I think it was Matt, wasn't it? We were talking about a fanzine where was it for the Alpha Centauri, wasn't it? Oh, you give me a name for it. Oh, I wrote it down. Hang on. Pain to Smack, was that it? For anybody who's interested, I'm going to be looking at some stuff on Ian M. Banks and the culture. Basically, I'm going to try to put together a video that's a general introduction to both Ian M. Banks and the culture and his non-culture science fiction. And hopefully that we're going to do another episode on. We're also working on an episode on Carl Sagan's Cosmos, both the book and the series, just as part of the letter C, if you like. And I'm quite enjoying that. So hopefully to make a general video rather than to have to delve into reading all 10 culture books. I'm certainly going to look at some of the books in individual detail, but that's where we're going with our videos. If anyone's not aware of the culture books, check them out. I'd argue that Ian Banks there's 9 novels in one collection of short stories. They're arguably amongst the best science fiction that's been produced at the end of the 20th, early 21st century. Excuse me. Ever read A Colder War by Charles Stross? I've read one Charles Stross book. Let me see. And I don't know if that was it. And I thought it was all quite good. Let me see if I can tell you what it was. Maybe I'm thinking on someone else. Actually, let me see. Merchant Princess. Oh, excuse me. Singularity Sky. No, Sunrise. No, you know what? I thought I'd read a book by Charles Stross, but it looks like maybe not. Merchant Prince series. No, I must be thinking on someone else. Somebody with a very similar name by the looks of it, I think. Let's see. No. Every Colder War by Charles. No, sorry, Matt. That doesn't. I was thinking on. I must be thinking on someone else. I haven't, I'm afraid. Inspired by Lovecraft, great short story available free online. Oh, okay. Hang on. Oh, free stuff's good. A Colder War. Short story. I've got a bunch of short story books down at the minute. The other thing, as I said, I was looking to do a episode on the culture with Ian M. Banks. Look at the Cosmos. Oh yes, but it was Nightfall. Really, I'd like to do a little episode on Nightfall. Is the short story we talked about? What's the greatest science fiction story of all time, novel, etc. So we kind of threw Tiger out there. People would say it's Dune. I threw Tiger out there because a lot of people would argue for it as a novel. But in terms of the short story, Nightfall is the story that a lot of people consider that's the best one. It's not brilliantly written, but it's one of those ones where I think it's the idea. Goodness gracious, Captain Badminton has donated £20. Thank you very much, Captain Badminton. I feel like you should ask a question or something, get something for that, but that's very kind, much appreciated. Where do we get to? Inspired by Love. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to do some more Lovecraft stories, actually. I really like Lovecraft. A lot of people don't think, when I get back on track with that, Matt, a lot of people don't think Lovecraft's a great writer. I completely disagree. It's the same with Robert E. Howard. I think they're both very good wordsmiths. They're really good storytellers. Got to go to bed, mate. Take it easy. Thank you very much, Captain Badminton. It's been a pleasure, and thank you so much for that. That's very, very kind of you. I have to say thank you. And take it easy and sweet dreams. There we go. Yes, the Alpha Centauri penis smack. Yeah, it was just Matt. In relation to that, if anybody's into kind of fanzines, I'm not too sure where you would find this one, but I've actually got them all on the computer at the moment. And if anybody is into Ian, yeah, there we go. Let's see. Yeah. Let me just get you a wee link. There are. Oh, looks like there's one there that I don't have, or maybe it's just there's a wee link. There's an Ian M. Banks, the Culture fanzine, if you like. It's quite a good one, and that I think he contributed to. It's called the Banksonian, and you can get all the copies. I think there's 19 PDFs there at that website. So using some of it, things of their time, actually, it's quite an interesting thing. Stuff like that I'm trying to hopefully get put together to create little archives and get our website up and running some point soon. Lovecraft seemed to be a wee bit of a racist, says Factor Nonverba. Yeah. He regretted it in later life. Yeah, I'd imagine being a bit of a racist is something that a lot of people would regret. Yeah, he's an interesting character, and himself. You know what I mean? As I said, it's you can take it, you can read. You know, it's separate. It's always good. It's a good thing to separate an individual from their art, in order to examine their art, if you like. Whenever an individual brings their nastiness or whatever particular form of bigotry they have into a piece of writing, that can be problematic. But it's part and parcel of looking at it, and it's no reason to turn away, I think. As the guy that wrote, I believe, Dr. Dolittle, loved animals, hated people. But there's the thing with facting about Lovecraft is he's very much in this kind of modern emerging America, I suppose, and he really is a person that looks to the stagnating empire of Britain, if you like, to his senses and sensibilities, and so that kind of desire, whatever you want to call it, racism, it's very much just British imperialism, I think. But it's one of those things, I suppose. We all, people come up with all sorts of stupid ideas, I think, sometimes. But in terms of, if he's a bit of a racist, does that affect his stories or my enjoyment of reading them, or does it, bring that to them? No, I don't think so. Michael Jackson, Savile, Cosby, Weinstein, the list goes on. Yeah. Yes, I'm sure they're all regretting it too. Well, Mike, yeah, dear, oh dear. Cosby, Weinstein, yeah. I don't know. There's also, I think, if you look at Mel Gibson, I think, there you go. There's an actor and director on sort of top of his game. One night of drunken stupidity. What is it? He's calling the police officer all this and ranting about the Jews and stuff, and you go, well, he's what it's a hard one to recover from, I suppose, when your comments are broadcast around the world. But he's sometimes you have to go. I suppose it depends on whether the they stick to these kind of comments or their actions after these things. But you can always just go, drunkenness is a form of madness sometimes, But yeah, I suppose all of these people. The other thing is it's money and power that allow these people to do this kind of thing. Fact of Verba says, I forgive Gibson only because he was original Mad Max. Uh, I don't know. The way I would look at it is it's not up to me or to forgive him. I suppose it'd be more up to himself, I think. But it's pretty much women and Jews who were, I think, pretty offended by Mel Gibson. But I don't know. You get this idea within society these days that we're talking about the demolished man, and the idea is to demolish people. That how big a mistake every mistake that you make, almost everybody wants you to be hung, dried, and quartered. I'm all over the place. Hung, drawn, and quartered for it. If you see what I mean, we must destroy them. Don't ever let them earn a living again. This kind of thing. And I suppose it depends on if you're living means that you've got a platform to speak, but everyone's got a platform to speak these days, pretty much. If you've got access to technology, I don't know. I put it down as a moment of madness and stupidity, and heavily fueled by alcohol. Had a few of those myself. Nothing quite as bad as that, but there's in my youth. But yeah, forget. Yeah, it's the same sort of thing, I think, isn't it? But like certain people. Chris, was it? I don't know. People apologizing for something years ago, and then it's because technology can drag it up. Well, we want you to apologize again, and it's I don't know. We have different standards, I think, that we hold others to sometimes. But yeah, sometimes Savile, what Savile got away with. I mean, Savile's enabled pretty much by the establishment and the BBC and all sorts of people. Cosby, powerful actor Harvey Weinstein. Yeah, the list goes on. Power and often access to the idea of wealth and fame. But what do these people do for others? Well, they're that's what they offer, really, isn't it? It's a doorway to fame and fortune. But yeah, I mean, I haven't stopped listening to Michael Jackson songs. Not that I listen to them a lot, I'll tell you an interesting consequence of the Jimmy Savile thing. Factor is I don't know if you've seen the documentary about Jimmy Savile or any of the stuff about him. He's pretty much the host of the first ever Top of the Pops in Britain, and I think he's the host of the last one. And so the BBC run old episodes of Top of the Pops. For let's go back to 1984 and listen, and they have systematically had to go and remove Savile from every show that he's in, But yeah, as a kid, I wrote a letter to Jimmy Savile. Dear Jimmy, would you fix it for me? Thank goodness he never answered it. Great men have great faults doesn't hold water anymore, it seems. The idea of great, Great Britain, for example. Great means bigger in that sense. But yeah, I'd argue that there are no great men. Brad, we're all just degrees of the same thing. Some people want to look at others as great, and others want to see themselves as great. But we're all just normal people, really. At the end of the day, I think we all have our faults. We all have our problems. What we say and what we do and how we act, who knows? Captain EO is for me an extension of the Star Wars universe. Captain, can you expand EO? I don't know that. Or are you talking to Captain EO is for me an extension of the Star Wars universe. I don't get the EO. So I'm missing the reference, Matt. Apologies. Brad Rose, not that I would consider many of those in that list as great men. Captain EO blew my mind as a kid. I'm going to have to look that up. Oh, I don't know that. Captain EO. All right. I've never. Okay. Captain EO is a 1986 American 3D science fiction short film shown at Disney theme parks. From 86 to 98, the movie stars Michael Jackson. Was written by George Lucas and directed by Francis Ford Coppola, who came up with the name Captain EO from the Greek of Eos, the Greek goddess of the dawn. Okay. Yeah, I didn't go there from EO to Eos. The film was shown it. Okay, no, that's why I wouldn't have seen it. I've never heard of it. Score is written by James Horner. Oh, a feature two songs We Are to Change the World and Another Part of Me, both written and performed by Michael Jackson. No, I've never seen that. I must have a nosy. I wonder is there a version of it on YouTube or something? What's an EO Captain? That's what I was wondering. Eos, goddess of the dawn, is what apparently EO. This is it's a. I have the one with Eeyore is a is a noise that a donkey makes, like braying, isn't it? Michael Jackson acted in a musical attraction at Walt Disney World, created by George Lucas with a lot of the same special effects. Enjoy YouTube captures of it. Okay, Disney was a fascist just before. I did an introduction. I used to run a film club in the local university, like Movie Drone that Alex Cox used to do. In fact, I called it Movie Drone, and I had to do. It was one of those nights where, unfortunately, I was employed elsewhere and had to go play a gig for charity. And the way to do this was I meant to put the film on and give a talk. And I'm trying to think. It was. I think it might have been heavy metal, and whatever it was, something came up, and we were joking about American cartoons, and somebody talked about the Simpsons, I think, and somebody asked the question, yeah, what is it with the Simpsons running the is it the Disney joke, Nazi Superman are our master, or something like that in the Simpsons? And there's somebody doing a PhD there on Disney somehow, and absolutely went mental of the thought that Disney was a fascist and attacked everybody over it, and they were American. And kind of, well, the response was, well, why does The Simpsons run with that joke then if it's not true? Excuse me, or if it's not implied. So I honestly don't know, but I don't know too much about Walt Disney, to be honest with you. I've never heard that. I know Disney understood an anti-fascist mission from the White House. The Goodwill Tour of South America. Yeah, and you can look at the sort of the propaganda that Disney produces, I suppose. Maybe not full fascist, more like eugenicist. I don't know. The one thing I do know about the jokes that they used to tell about Disney weren't to do about Walt Disney, but simply to do with being employed there. And I mean, this is going back a good few years, but there was the employees of Disney used to refer to their employers as Mauschwitz. And apparently that Disney sent a missile, if you like, a missive around the place, saying that anybody who is caught referring to us as Mauschwitz is gone. And I suppose the joke was that then they started calling it Doghouse. And if you get the reference, but I couldn't possibly comment. I've yet to see THX 1138. What's everyone's take? Never seen it, says Matt. It's good. Yeah, I saw it a long time. I've seen it a few times. It's very good. He did it while in film school. Robert Duvall, isn't it? And of course, I once again, THX 113. It really just lifts heavily, borrows heavily in the same way that Star Wars takes from Hidden Fortress. I would say that it takes heavily from 1984 and We, Yevgeny Zamyatin's We. But it's in terms of it's a dystopian. It's a dystopian story. It's very good, actually. I think if you haven't seen it, I'm thinking, is it kind of come out around the same sort of era as A Boy and Its Dog? Is it a 70s film? But yeah, I think it's quite good. It's one of those, as a student, as somebody pointed out there, sort of, isn't it something based on his feature film directorial debut, produced by Francis Ford Coppola, written by Lucas and Walter Murch, stars Robert Duvall and the great Donald Pleasance. Yeah, I remember even the helmet with the robots, the cops. If you know what I mean, I always thought that was quite scary, actually. It says there's a novelization by Ben Bova published in 1971. and I think there's a director's cut prepared by Lucas. It says here in 2004. Yeah, there's the original student film. Um, if you like dystopian fiction, dystopian films, the proper hardcore ones, if you know what I mean. It's not that, but I think it's a good film. Um, Undertook, not understood. What was that? I missed something there. So everyone's take. Sorry, backtracking there, Matt. I never heard that. I know Disney undertook an anti-fascist mission from the White House, the Goodwill Tour of South America. Yeah, I don't know. Again, I think it's just maybe even just urban myth, but I'm not the person to comment on Walt Disney. I have to say, and I don't like Disney films. This might be a shock to a lot of people. I actually hate Disney films. I hate Disney cartoons, and I've never liked them. I like the Disney films that I like, or I can count on one hand, but they're odd ones. But the Black Hole would be one of them. But the Disney School of Animation is never, I've never liked it, and I don't know, it's just never appealed to me. I think. We love the Warner Brothers stuff, the Wile E. Coyotes, and all of that kind of thing. And I don't see what the appeal is in Mickey Mouse in any shape or form whatsoever. And I used to do quite a good impersonation of Mickey Mouse, but I don't want to wreck my throat. But yeah, THX 113, it's not a bad film. So we are 138 by the Misfits as a tribute to it. There's a lot. Do you know somebody was asking about people contacting Frank Herbert? Can we write a song about your book? I don't think anybody needs his permission. If you want to write a song about sandworms, walking without rhythm, all of this stuff, go ahead. I was thinking about, was it Kate Bush and Wuthering Heights and stuff. A lot of people have written songs about books because they've inspired them or something like that. But there we go. The Misfits. Every writer and cartoonist I ever met who had worked at Disney said they were misled and cheated. Poor people. I don't know. A long time ago, I suppose the woman that raised my father would have had an American relation, and apparently she was some sort of millionaire and had something to do with Disney. But that's it. And we lost touch in the 70s, I think. Interesting to hear your take on Disney. I'm an Epcot fanatic. Disney's vision of tomorrow. The other vision of tomorrow, I suppose, Epcot Center, that kind of thing. Theme park at the Walt Disney World Resort in Bay, Florida. Experimental prototype community of tomorrow. Spaceship Earth. Very good. Yeah. Myself and my wife are looking at getting the heck out of here, and we'd like to move to a very small island off the north coast of Northern Ireland, and kind of just go, as much keep doing what we're doing, but kind of go a bit self-sufficient and stuff like that. Try to take if we're going to build a house there at some point, I'd like to sort of build a one that can be all, I suppose, solar paneled and windmills and all that kind of thing. Wind power would be the main thing out there. But yeah, looking into a lot of stuff, a lot of things like that at the minute, Matt. Biodomes and all sorts of things. It's interesting. What is it we have here? Goodness, not such. Oh, I can't even remember. Wendy. Oh, she's not there. I was going to ask my wife, but we sent her up the road somewhere. Is that it? The Echo Centre. Yeah, Econs Visitor and Conference Centre in Ballymena. Not quite the same thing. But I suppose one of those attempts to do that. But yeah, things like that, I suppose, are getting quite interesting. If you're unfamiliar, take a look at Horizons, the old Disney attraction. Yeah, I don't know. I've only ever been to one theme park kind of thing in my life, and one roller coaster. Those kind of things aren't my cup of tea, really. In fact, it says I thought Epcot was closing. So I see that. I mean, I've seen that they're spending all this money on these. I don't know. I don't understand the. I suppose taking your little kids, to a place like that, and yeah, great fun it must be. But I was looking at is it like the Star Wars experience that you're having there at Disney, and the amount of money that you're paying for basically a box room. That if you wanted the Star Wars experience, you could transform your own room into that, probably cheaper than staying there for one day. I've never been to Northern Ireland. Read a lot about the Troubles. If you've ever got any questions, Matt, fire away. I'm thinking of doing a sort of thing about Northern Ireland at some point, just to sort of get it out of my system, I suppose. But I get asked a lot of questions about it, and I'm not from either Catholic or Protestant community, so I don't exist. Simple as that. But I have a very, very unique viewpoint on the Troubles and have been involved in it, even though I shouldn't have been, I suppose. So yeah, I have a very particular set of stories to tell, Matt. But if you ever want to know something, you simply put, I am not biased. It's mostly nostalgia for me. Plus, just being in an environment where everything is stage managed, it's like a warm up. Yeah, I mean, I can see the appeal. It's just the I think the impact on your wallet. A hot dog is $9. That's a lot for a sausage and a bat, isn't it? Yeah. Matt says, I'm Jewish, so is the old joke, I'm a Protestant Jew or a Catholic Jew. Oh, what's the other one? Do you know the Frank Drebin one? Is he says, I'm Dutch Irish, my mother was a Jew. And I think they edited that one or something, but there we go. Am I a Protestant Jew or a Catholic Jew? Very good. I've not heard that one. I've only sort of known one Jewish person in my life, Matt, who was from a long time ago. He's sadly passed away, and we didn't speak the same language at all. And we got on very well together as an old girlfriend's father, and he was a good chap, I have to say. Joke here was a man in Northern Ireland was asked if Catholic or Protestant. He said, I'm an atheist. He said, are you a Catholic or Protestant atheist? Yeah, pretty much. The British and the BBC, the news media, the Protestants and the Catholics are all completely myopic to the fact that it's either us or them. You're either one or the other. And completely honestly, 20% of Northern Ireland's population isn't either. The luckiest Palestinian in Northern Ireland. Israel has a prime minister from Northern Ireland, I believe. But I can't remember his name. I'm not practicing baking; it's too delicious. I don't know. I think I pretty much call them the Abrahamic religions. That's how I run with it, Matt. But yeah, it's each to their own, I don't know. Yeah, Northern Ireland's a very funny place. It's and of course we were actually discussing recently whenever we were talking about the June book club, the idea of a pogrom. So we've had pogroms against the Jews, obviously, but in Ireland there was one of them. So yeah, Ireland's a place of massive religious intolerance, and arguably a place of incredible religious violence. Which is it's always I don't get it. But yeah, it's a bizarre thing, I have to say. Bacon is delicious. I love bacon. I love my gammon, I have to say. Gammon's gorgeous. Yeah, it's interesting. And you get a lot of sort of I suppose you get a lot of the Israel Palestine thing with flags in the two communities here as well, and showing solidarity, this kind of thing, one side the other. But all yep. If you're not practicing, that's okay. Each to their own, I always say. It's the real problem with religion is when people don't leave others alone. It's it's kind of when you try to enforce it on other people. But Christianity in Northern Ireland is very imperialistic. And there's a level of I would particularly add within Northern Ireland, there's a large level of mental illness attached to Christianity. But and I'm not joking there at all. That's the real problem with it, I mean, I agree with the idea that religion is confounding. I'm fascinated by it, Matt, and it's uh, uh, as you know, probably know I'm a classicist. So the ancient world is riddled with religions and gods of all shapes and sizes and types. And I tend to follow the threads when looking at anything like that, all the way back to the beginning, which is an interesting way of taking a look at religion. And I suppose it's what you should do with literature. If you're a literature fan, start with the world's first book, but we can work our way backwards and see where things come from. But if you get to the point where you're hitting the Greeks in the 3rd, 4th century, they've figured out that the gods don't exist. And it's how can we use that information? But yeah, religion's very interesting, and even things like the Old Testament. I'm not a fan of the New Testament; it's very badly written. But the Old Testament, the Torah, religious books, etc., containing there's so much in them. They work on many different levels. So, in terms of religion, I'm fascinated by it and interested and like to study them. But I particularly am interested in how religions use myths. There we go. Doc, what percentage of Irish actually fall into the missionary or protective or trap? 50%. Didn't know 20% of Northern Irish were not aligned to the sectarian movement. Yeah, no, really, it's simply we do have censuses here, and it's becoming more and more. But simply put, if you want to understand the truth of it, 40% of the population are Protestant, which makes them a minority. 40% of the population are Catholic, which also makes them a minority. And there's a 20% of we have over Matt Northern Ireland's trying to modernise, but we have people who've migrated here. And put it this way, when I was a child, you'd be lucky to see a person of colour anywhere in Northern Ireland or in Belfast. Not so much now. The fact that we have people from all over the place here, and we have up to, as far as I know, up to about 100 different languages being spoken within our school system. So it makes the whole for example, focus on the Irish language, focus on the English. We're becoming a multicultural society, and unfortunately, what I call the retarded atavism of the Catholics and the Protestants, or the Unionists and the Nationalists, or the Republicans and the whatever you want to call it, loyalists. That is a problem. So Northern Ireland is actually a retarded society in the non-pejorative sense of the word. We slow our own development because we want to be like our grandfathers. And the tradition is we're a very backward-looking country. And that's one of the reasons why we don't produce science fiction writers. And almost everywhere on the planet does. It's really pathetic, isn't it? My educational background is in ethnic and sectarian conflict. You got full on here. We just got rid of a Pentecostal Christian as our prime minister. If he only cared for the people as much as he did for his Lord, he was a despicable leader. Yeah. Naked HD XYZ Tinder overpriced shit. Try as I think those are adverts, aren't they? Let me see. Boom. There we go. Well, listen, folks, I'm enjoying this chat tonight. I was just to get on to mention a few wee things. As always, we've got a bit of an international crowd on and stuff. And I'll tell you something. In terms of religion, I think science fiction is a great place to explore it, and it's a great, like many sort of difficult topics for depending over the years. Whether they be things like gender, sexuality, religion is also a place that's been explored heavily by science fiction. Even whether it be in the short fiction of the ideas merchants, this kind of thing. Oh goodness! Oh, I'm getting blasted by this. I wonder, can I block this? Hang on. Sorry, folks. We're getting a. Let's hide that user. Okay. Goodness, we're getting ad bombed. This a-hole's still there. I think I've blocked them. Sorry about that, folks. It does happen. At least it's not as bad as the first time it happened. I had put it this way: I'm not going to try and hunt that person down. But if anybody recalls, one earlier on, we got something similar with a Northern Irish Nazi, sadly, and we had to track him down and then check out find out who it was. Basically, very very sad state of affairs. But I do apologise about that. Oh, it's, I don't know, was it delete Tinder? We have sex cheap. Just a repeat bot kind of thing, isn't it? Matt S says science fiction always fascinated me because while it is rooted in who we were or currently, it also invites us to imagine the unexpected. Yeah, hate speech. Yeah, it's. I mean, everything that guys, you've been asking me tonight about fantasy books, fantasy books, Dungeons and Dragons, that kind of thing. The one thing that I suppose, growing up here, I've watched people in my own town. So when I was a kid, my mom didn't want me to tell anyone that I played Dungeons and Dragons because of the nonsense, that kind of thing. So the local people, this would be the local Protestants, by the way. So we had burnings of Dungeons and Dragons books at the local leisure centre when I was a kid. They would also burn albums, music by bands like Black Sabbath, Iron, this kind of stuff. And very much and if you understand that mentality, this is the mentality that people who burn books. So that's where Christianity is and has been here in a long time. It's a very unaccepting society, and science fiction for me has always been an escape, but not like fantasy. I suppose fantasy is that escapism where we can get a bit of possible maybe a wish fulfillment or that kind of thing. But science fiction invites us to imagine the unexpected, as Matt so well put it. And where are we going? What are we doing? And it's all science fiction's always modern when it's written. And it's an interesting thing that its reach can go past the modern as it becomes a thing of the past, if you see what I mean. And yeah, it allows us to speculate based on what we know. Almost anything about the human condition. I think like all fiction, it's really like all literature. It's fundamentally about us, isn't it? And yeah, I mean, I personally, as a classicist, I'll tell you that there's science fiction, absolutely, in the ancient world. There really is. It's not myth, though. The myths are different. But there is an attempt to speculate about the flaws in a society. Where can we go? What can we take it and imagine a better world? And even sometimes if it is just flying on a boat up to the moon, this kind of thing. But yeah, it does. I mean, I've known stuff in such a backward, retarded society. I've been educated about human sexuality, gender, religion, all the problems with nuclear technology, mutations, all of so many different things. Science fiction goes so many different places. I've been very well educated by it in a society that otherwise does not want me to look forward at all, and only wants me to look at a very particular version of one of two versions of I suppose the Christian Bible. Of course, I see the Bible. To me, that's a Bible, by the way. Apollodor is also known as the Bible because a Bible is a library. Biblios means the books. But it's a very scary place in Northern Ireland, and I, in particular, I suppose myself would be haunted by Protestants and Catholics alike, and members of actors for the state. So it's police, army, IRA, UVF, UDF. Doesn't matter. They're all equally bad to me, including especially the state. So hiding, moving around a lot, and it wasn't particularly. So secondhand bookshops were my thing. I'd buy books once a month in Belfast at a place called Smithfield, read them over the month, and then take them back to the shop and sell them when I was a little kid and get a new set of books. So but not only that, it allows you to put yourself in other people's shoes, other cultures, and even cultures that don't exist. They say if you don't read books, you only live one life. But if you do read books, you live thousands. Excuse me. In fact, it says, "Oh, the Orange Catholic Bible." Yeah, that's here. I get asked about that a lot, actually, and I have pointed out there is in fact, I had this quote the other week about Frank Herbert talking about how Irish he is. He's burning books. Wow, in the USA, they're getting rid of classics for political reasons. D&D was attacked here too. Tom Hanks did a movie as a character who went crazy playing a Dungeons and Dragons analog. I think I saw that maybe when it came in. Did you actually do a PhD on June? I did, Matt. Yes, indeed. Hang on, where is it? Is it here? Somewhere. There it is. I'll get it for you. I did. I was the first person to ever do a PhD on the entire June series. There were a couple of other PhDs that did exist on June, but they were only done on the first book. And there you go. That's it. There you are. There we go. Let me see. Not done on the best of conditions, I have to say, but there we are. That's my. There we go. Evolution, the Messianic Hero, and Ecology. Isn't that something like that? I could have done with organizing the title a bit better, but I did it as a sort of thematic analysis. I wanted each of the major themes I wanted to start with the strongest theme and see how they ran. And so all of the themes in evolution are in June. The one that's super dominant, the one that stays the whole way, it's evolution. It's not ecology. But it's I did actually. And I was going to do it on something. Well, I had a few different ideas for a PhD, as you do. Goodness, put that there. And oddly enough, because I have classical sensibilities, I'm a computer scientist as well, and I'm one of these people that has degrees in lots of different things, I suppose. But oddly enough, came down to two. This is the Toyn, by the way. This is the Irish epic, the Toyn, also known as the Toyn Bo Cooley, the Cattle Raid of Cooley. And this is a new translation. There's a very well-known poetic translation by Irish poet called Thomas Kinsella, I believe. But this is something new by Kieran Carson. So I was originally going to look at this from a classicist point of view, and it didn't go down too well. And I ended up getting, but I was going to do, what was it, an examination. So here we go. This, if anybody wants a PhD title, here's one for you. An examination of the Toyn Bo Cooley as the oldest Western vernacular saga epic, which is true, and its relationship, if any, to the Homeric epics of the Iliad and the Odyssey. That was my title. That's what I was going to go with. And I ended up getting interviewed by the wrong people at the wrong campus and the wrong university, and it was a complete mess. And they brought their Irish nationalist crap to the party, and I'm not party to it, so I didn't. I ended up getting interviewed for the same PhD a week later. They called me back because I was at a dinner party. And I had one of my famous rants about how stupid everybody was up there, and there were guests from the university, and it rippled back that they'd made a complete fool of themselves. So I got a phone call re-inviting me for an interview with the right people at the right university in the right department, and I told them that I'd been so disgusted by what I'd heard in relation to anything to do with Irish epics, national. There's an agenda that these people want to push, and I'm not part of it. So I actually said, no, I'm coming at it from a classicist's point of view. I think that there's elements of how the Homeric epics have been constructed. I think you have to remember these Irish tales have been written down by Christian monks, and to a degree have been altered in some ways, But there you go. Excuse me. But yes, I did indeed, and it was a very bad set of circumstances. In fact, I dropped out of my PhD halfway through, Matt, to look after my mum, who was terminally ill, and the university didn't really have any interest in anything, so they just took all the money from my grant and piss off, basically. So I was able to come back to it after my mum. My mum made me a promise to finish it because I thought I was done and dusted, and I had written so much of it in my first year and a half. But I'd planned for it to be 2 volumes, and unfortunately, if you check it, but the whole PhD June that's on the station, Matt, the full, there's 36 videos. That's the entire PhD read by me, word for word, and all the footnotes are in it. So that I do understand, as far as I know, it's the first time anyone's ever done that. I've made it into a whole set of videos, but it comes to about 11 and a half hours. So if you want to check out the whole, I'm happy to send anybody a copy, by the way, if you want to send me a wee email to the sciencefictionstation@gmail.com. We're hoping to get a wee website up soon so we can actually just put it up there for people to grab. But yeah, that's my PhD. So I'm a classicist, and I've got degrees in classical studies, Irish studies, English literature, science fiction studies, and What did I miss? I've got a doctorate in philosophy as well. I think something like that. I might have missed something. But I'm a multidisciplinarian. I'm a polymath, and I get bored easily. It's not that I just get bored like moving subjects. But science fiction, as I've said, there's a real correlation between myth and science fiction, and particularly with Dune. Matt, that I've sort of pointed out that I'm aware that there's a massive overlay of Greek mythology and other stuff in Dune. I did kind of 3 videos on the Pelopids, which was a bit of an effort, I have to say. And I kind of intend to do a 4th one to add on to the end. To sort of, now that you've learned the story of the Pelopids, let's see how this appears in Dune. But upon reading Dune quite late in life, I suppose I became very aware that that's the sort of, I'm picking up on things that a lot of people don't get. The hand stuff, and if you want to know by the time you get to God Emperor of Dune, if you look at the museum Fremen, that's the Northern Irish and the Irish. If you understand what happens here, that they become exactly what they are, particularly the Protestant loyalist community. Excuse me. So we're in silly season at the minute, actually, as they call it. Let me just catch up on your comments, folks. So, but yeah, I did, Matt. Recently, the book behind me, by the way, that's Kath. That's Cara Kennedy. Sorry, Women's Agency in the Dune Universe. I think Cara completed her PhD there in around 2018. So she's also got a PhD on all 6 books of the Dune series. Really, again, Women's Agency, tracing women's liberation through science fiction. So it really does look at the feminist aspect of it, which is one of the things that I couldn't do. So if you get my PhD and Cara's, the 2 of them together, there's still stuff that I would like to have had in mind, but yeah, they give you a lot of info on the Dune series. Fact that they ought to ban the Bible, then it got truly messed up stuff. Well, it does. Yeah, the problem with the Bibles is how heavily edited and changed that they are. But the Old Testament's a good read. I think the New Testament not so much. Matt S says that's awesome. That makes my heart happy. Brad, when you censor it will expand the interest. Yeah, I don't think I think I look at the Bible as an ancient, a product of the Roman. I look at it as a product of this classical world, but I look at the Bible as a product of the Roman Empire. That's in its entirety. I look at the Old Testament in a completely different way than I look at the New Testament. And the New Testament is very much a product of Roman Empire. The Old Testament, not so much. And it has a range of things in it. History, fable, there's all different types of narrative and stories in it. And I'd argue that, for example, and I'd love to get my hands on a copy of the Torah, because my understanding is, that the original Torah, a lot of these stories are much more expanded. That there are stories that, let's cut that out. That's not palatable for Christianity, this kind of thing. And I'm not too sure. I mean, you actually, Matt, you might know. Here's an example. In the book of Genesis within the Old Testament Christianity, Noah, not Noah, sorry, hang on, where are we? Noah and his ark, right? He gets back on land, plants a vineyard, gets a bit drunk, children cover his shame, this kind of thing. As far as that, now I don't know if this is for certain, I must, because I haven't read it yet, but I understand that there's a lot more to that story. And that the idea is that a Satan, for example, an adversary or a poisoner of gods, comes down upon instruction and takes the hearts of 3 animals and squeezes them amongst the vines. And that the animals are a pig, a lion, and a wild beast. And if I know this from a story of myths or something, I'm not sure my source. So the story goes that when man drinks enough alcohol, he gets proud like a lion. And if he drinks a little bit more, he'll start acting like a pig. And if he drinks enough, he'll act like a wild beast. And that's why. And I love stories like that. And it's, again, religious texts are very useful. For me, the problem with them is then when you go, hang on, I've got this story older and somewhere else. That's when you go, if this is the word of God, then why is God a plagiarist? Why is it, this kind of thing? So there are stories in the Bible that are occur in older cultures, and they've been cannibalized, if you like. And of course, you've got to consider bias as well. There's all sorts of things to consider, but if you look at the Bible from a non-religious point of view and look at it as a book to be studied, and I'm curious about this, what's this all about? It can become pretty interesting, Yeah, universities are tough. I had a terrible time too. My dad played the same role for me in college with my master's degree. Dog, if looking for a place to live, fuck islands, come to Southwest Florida so I can bug you more directly. I don't know. I think it'll be too hot for me there. I'd melt. I'm bear in mind, as I point out, I'm from Northern Ireland. That means I'm not white. I'm what you call extremely pale. Almost translucent, if you can see what I mean. Don't know. I've never been to America, and I'm not sure they let me in. Factor, to be honest with you. Yeah, I followed the PhD series a bit, but I wasn't sure if it was actually presented to a university or more a personal academic study. Oh no, that was my actual PhD, and because circumstances with me, basically, it pretty much I lost everything in terms of caring for my mother, financially, everything just kaput. It meant I couldn't recover my career. So eventually, just with what I do now, as I work for myself as a private tutor, I wanted to publish my PhD, and simple as that. And by the way, Matt, everybody's been kind of interested in June since the word of the film came out, but nobody gave a shit about it. Nobody cared. Zero interest. It's one of the problems that if you do your PhD and you're looking to publish, if no one's interested, you're done. You're not going to go one step forward. And so it was about taking control. And I thought YouTube was the perfect place to do it. And I also thought that Dune fans would love this, and that the idea of it being a PhD might put them off. And I didn't want to sort of detract from it, but the idea of starting to put in all these images, getting the text, and just thought that this, picture paints 1,000 words. I thought it took its, I thought it took the average person's ability to understand it way up. And it's in pieces, if you know what I mean, right? So you can deal with it bit by bit. And I have a version up with it, or where it's each of the 5 chapters. So if you want to just take a chapter and go for it, you can. But yeah, no, it hasn't been presented to anybody. It was presented to, it's part of my science fiction station. So the only people it's been presented to, Matt, are you guys, the Dune fans, really, or science fiction fans. And that's who it's for. Because nobody was going to publish it, which meant, as far as I'm concerned, I'm not that interested in other science fiction. I'm not a science fiction academic, if you see what I mean. And fundamentally, because I'm classically trained, I don't work like these people. I have standards in some shape or form. My PhD is not what I wanted it to be because of the circumstances that it was done in. And it was that whenever I went back, they gave me the minimum amount of time to do it, and so I produced that. And I wasn't allowed to add more, and I had more done. So that was the sad thing. If you look at the last chapter, the very last episode, it'll tell you about it in the conclusions. But yeah, it's and so yeah, and some of it's pretty dense, I suppose. But I'm a bit. I think the thing that I got praised for most was really getting the Samuel Butler connection, the Erebor stuff, and all of that. And that was me. But there you go. But no, I enjoyed doing it. I suppose it was just a tragic set of circumstances, really. And believe it or not, Matt, it's something that's continued to happen to me throughout my academic career. Every time I'm about to do something or publish something, fortunately, someone either dies or takes seriously ill, and I'm not joking. It's starting to look like a bit of a curse. So in the end, I just gave up, and I'm not pursuing an academic career in any shape or form anymore. And the other thing is, Northern Ireland universities are same as our schools. They're sectarian, and I don't like sectarians, unfortunately. Museum Fremen, you think, are what now in comparison to Irish religion? Can you expand more? Sorry, fact, the Museum Fremen are the loyalist groups, the Orange Order, people who simply 300 odd years ago, a bunch of people did something, and we're going to pretend to be like them. We'll march for them. We'll act as if there are victories. The Museum Fremen, the way they pretend that they're Fremen, that's what happens here. So, and it's part of what, as I said, I call it retarded atavism. Right at the minute, we have a bonfire across here that looks like the Tower of Babel, and there's polished down. They're going to start burning tires, and huffing in all that sulfur. And I hear. I wouldn't tell you. I've actually had quite a crazy week, and yeah, the chances of me getting murdered are going up. But yeah, it's a I don't know, bizarre thing. But yeah, the real key to that factor is have a look at if the book to read in tandem with God Emperor of June is the White Plague. Have a look at that. We were having a wee chat about it the other day because I was reading an article about it. It's considered a book that I think alien. Well, the article that I read from the author's point of view, they felt that the White Plague by Frank Herbert had alienated a lot of his audience because it went myth specific, if you like. It was Irish history, Irish mythology, Irish language to a degree, and also that political situation that a lot of people don't really understand about Northern Ireland, and they don't understand it because genuinely it involves madness, I think, and it's partly to do with empire and how the British control, but particularly the Conservative Party. Um, you know, yeah, there's a there's a power imbalance, and the Unionists can fill that gap here sometimes. But we do our people here are they don't want to make cakes for gay people. Like Asher's Baker. This kind of thing. We really are. It's a vile society here. I'm a misanthrope because of them, and and hatred is a mighty thing in this country, though it's meant to be Christian love, I suppose. Well, there we go. I don't even particularly like June, but it's such an alluring idea. A YouTube presented pasty. The other thing about it, I'll finish here. I confess to sitting down a few times and adding to my old undergrad thesis. Well, I've actually done a couple of things like that here as well. I'm churning out stuff that I never got to do. Um, you're here being academic with us. I treat my writing the same way. I'm fortunate to have a career I love, but I'll probably never stop writing, not to publish, just to share. Yeah, why not try sharing if you can, Matt? There's ways of doing it. I've published a poem on the station, which was in response to a murder here, but it was I kind of wrote it the night the wee girl was murdered, and that's the poem Swords. But if you really want to know what it should be called Guns. But yeah, I try not to be too academic, and I don't think that I am academic. I get what you're saying, by the way. I'm not being mealy mouthed, but I'm trying to be I'm trying to, I suppose, present it in a hopefully a certain way that I don't want to present nonsense, and if I don't know something, I'll say I don't know it. I say we have a wee kind of reference library of science fiction books and classics and all sorts of stuff here. So I do my best that way, but I'm trying to make it a bit more entertaining as well. I think I fundamentally think that if you're an educator, you should know how to entertain. Education is a form of entertainment to a degree, or only if it's done well, it is. But yeah, it's well. I suppose the big thing at the end of the day is the other thing, Matt, is that I don't think many people would put a PhD up like this. They might. I think a lot of them would be. As whenever I did put it up, I said one thing: warts and all flaws and all. There's mistakes in it. But that they would probably take it off. Let's refine it a bit, get it to a publisher, publish it that way. It's not going to be quite the same thing. And I thought it would be also useful to show any potential PhD candidate, anybody ever wants to do a piece of work like that, what it looks like. I'd never seen a PhD until I started doing one, and it was simply a colleague thought at the university said, "Here, take mine just to have a look. It's worth having a nosy to see what on earth this thing is." So I thought it would be helpful, and I had actually considered doing a wee video on advice for people who were considering one, and even considering doing a video on whether people should study science fiction or not. But nobody wants to assess. I'll probably never start writing, not to publish, just to share. Nobody wants to assess whether they've got the wrong ideas. It's like acknowledging a corpse in the corner. What do you mean a good person like me never saw a corpse in the corner? I never do that. It's accessible, your work. Yes, education as entertainment. Now you know why I like Disney's Epcot. Yeah, I have to say I do like centers like places like that, those kind of science centers. But everything in America sometimes, Matt, to me seems on such a massive scale as well. I said we've got something like that up the road, but it's not that big and it's not that impressive, But the thing about putting the ideas up, I got a bit of flack from some stuff, but the point is, then you can say, I did the work. There's where I got that information. So it gives you it gives you a level of honesty. And we have, I don't know, there's nearly 600 references there. And even a couple of times where I'm quoting someone else and I want people to know that there's something wrong with that quote, I've gone, I think in the videos, footnote 400 is one that I go, footnote alert, because it's actually telling you a lie. But it's a quotation, it's not by me. And I'm using that quotation. It's about June, I think, appearing in the Whole Earth catalogue. And not quite so, but I've presented the evidence that someone else said, and then my footnote goes, "This is cobbler," if you see what I mean. But the goal was to make it more accessible, yeah. And the first time we put it up, I suppose there's like 3 different versions of it there. The first time, really, we didn't. I have a funny hearing problem, and we didn't get the sound right, and it pissed a lot of people off. To be honest with you, though I was kind of not understanding why people couldn't turn their volume down. I think a lot of people were listening to it on headphones, and I didn't really know what I was doing. So the second, we just kind of tidied it up a wee bit, fixed some mistakes, and we fixed the sound a big lot as well. And yeah, so it shouldn't offend you if it's so. There's 3 different versions, but if you're checking through the playlists, have a look at the remastered ones because they'll be less offensive to your ears. I think it wasn't that bad. It was just that there's a couple of episodes where my hearing was so bad, and the problem with my hearing is a kind of pressure thing. If you see what I mean. So I just start talking louder and louder and louder, and I almost to the point where I'm shouting at people, and I don't know. I can't tell the difference. It's one of those things, you know. But yeah, it's I don't know whether they've got the wrong ideas. It's fair enough. It's the point is putting it up. I suppose your other option really is to go with what you call peer review, and I've pointed out to a couple of people that the people that run peer review in science fiction journals are not my peers. I don't look at them as my peers, and that might sound really arrogant of me, but it's I come from a different background than reading science fiction books. It's part of me, I suppose, but it's so I go about my business as a classicist. Simply put, I want evidence, and yeah, and you've got to interpret stuff. I got a couple of things wrong as well, and things that I hadn't considered. So the good thing about the PhD, Matt, by putting it up on YouTube, and that you have all these comments sections where anyone can pop in, and as long as I've even left the offensive ones up, to be honest with you, but there's it brings a level of comment, it adds something to it that no PhD in the world has. And that's what makes it different. All of you guys can pop into an episode and go, "Hey, Russ, that was a good idea. Did you miss this wee thing?" "Oh, thank you." "Oh, so I did." If you see, I mean, the PhD videos are full of comments like that, or a lot of stuff thanking me, etc. But they have added to the work, and the work itself has evolved from a big, and to be honest with you have to sit and read that book that thick with that level, and they don't even like you to use, reasonably interesting language. To write a PhD is to be prosaic as heck, be boring is what they want. And you have to remember that there's a lot of PhDs out there by people in universities, and they don't like you to make them look stupid. So nobody likes a smart arse, as they say, and that's me, unfortunately. But I think it's done wonders for the work. And I think in terms of anybody else, if you had done a PhD, master's thesis, any paper, what all I've got, in fact, I don't even really film everything. It's just images, a bit of software to manipulate that, and a microphone, and it allows me to take this. And if you think about academics flying all over the world, right, to deliver 15-minute long papers, which is appalling. Who needs to do that anymore? I think I really do. I think nobody really knows about this, to be honest with you. But certainly there's a lot to commend publishing a PhD like this. And even to be honest with you, you could present your PhD like this to your supervisors, etc., for your Viva, your defense. It would be probably a lot easier for them to tear through 11 and a half hours of a YouTube video than to sit and make every single note on that, And it is a dense PhD, I have to say. Excuse me. But yeah, Matt, as Matt says, yeah, let's see where just to catch up. Butterfly, there's always someone who disagrees. Yeah, but that's again, I'm a classicist, so argument is absolutely fine by me. I expect people to disagree with me. Argument is a fundamental of how I work. And I say I would run with things like the dialectic argument and I suppose the persuasive argument, but I actually hybridize the two. So I work my own way out of classical methods, if you like, but it's because you don't have to just stick to the. Not all the advice in the ancient world is brilliant, if you see what I mean, but you can develop it and you can make it better, make it work for you. Pointing out having a great critic foe seems to keep some scholars in business. As long as it's earnest, yeah. If someone points out a flaw in your work and you didn't see it, you should be happy about it. I would be. I can't. No, it's often a face palm moment, isn't it? But yeah, thank you so much. I can't believe I missed that. It happens, especially when you get into something like that in such detail. You can become a little bit blind to your own work. Whenever you have to put a PhD, well, I've discovered that the United Kingdom's a bit backward in some ways, but we're not. You're not allowed to have a proofreader or somebody check it or anything. Yeah, it's an entirely solo endeavor, and you can risk getting. Well, I was told you can risk getting kicked out of it for getting anyone to help you in any way with it. So by the time you're maybe getting the thing ready for presentation and bound, I looked through it about 10 times for spelling mistakes, but there's a point where you're not going to find them anymore. You're just and you really do need someone else to do it. So yeah, it does make it stronger. Feedback is a good thing. And that's a great idea. It's a dialogue that's being created and a flourishing of knowledge. Absolutely. The whole point about I suppose the last episode, the whole point about a PhD. Sadly, nobody seems to want you to complete a piece of work these days, and again, make everybody else look bad. I could have happily done a complete PhD of 200,000 words, but no one would let me. And that's their problem, not mine, to be honest with you. Yeah, it's. There's something about it. I don't know. Academia is kind of up to its neck in money, and it's quite corrupt, to be honest with you. It's a very backstabby kind of world. Dear. I was trying to remember. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Every second, guys. Matt saying, "I tell my staff I'm not upset. I got feedback. I'm upset. I was wrong." I can be like that. I love it when I'm wrong because I'm not very often wrong. But when I am wrong, it's usually my wife that will tell me, and she's usually right. And I hate being, oh no, did I really do that? I feel like I let myself down. But at the same time, I know I'm a flawed enough human being that I make mistakes. Matt says, I wouldn't dream of publishing anything at work without review. It's the old Bradbury rule: shove your blunt stick in everyone's face and let them cut till it's sharp. Yeah, I mean, the stuff that I put up, I don't like working in a rush. I'll tend to write the thing. I'll probably do about 2 or 3 drafts, hopefully, and then as I'm reading it, I might alter it a little bit to make it flow better for the microphone, and then we put all the images together. And I do a bit of test. Again, I'm a computer scientist as well, so I'll do my testing and stuff like that, and hopefully check that my work's okay. Occasionally, even then, it takes about a week to make a 10 to 20 minute video. And it can be pretty tiring on the eyes, and occasionally you miss the odd wee thing. But the way I work with my narratives is generally that there's a lot to say, and I'm trying to bring in a bit of the personal touch. It's also about it's really I'm really just trying to engage with people and share my fun and my enjoyment of science fiction, and reach out to a few people. And instead of I remembered the point I was going to make, that almost all PhDs are unfinished. So the point is, at the end of it, there's a bunch of recommendations, and maybe the next person. So what could I not get in my PhD is there, and I'm recommending that if someone else is out there and you want to do a PhD on Dune, this is what you should look at, because again, it has to be original, doesn't it? It's that's the whole point of it. It needs to be something new, and so your doctorate is actually awarded for advancing human knowledge, even though they're all pretty much philosophy doctorates, Still think so. Yeah, I don't know. The different authors have different, by the way, approaches to writing. But I published a wee poem, and it's just a poem. Not many people have seen it, and it's not the sort of thing I would normally write. But it's you got to take it take it. I suppose people read your thing, give you a bit of feedback and criticism, and it's simply how. The other thing is, I suppose, is literary criticism it can be problematic. And I do my best to operate without bias, which is another um, classic trait, I suppose, and it's one that a lot of literary critics should learn. In fact, it's something that I think almost everybody outside of the classical world should learn. It's how to operate without bias. We all have our own biases, I suppose. Um, mm, but yeah, it's the you know, I mean, I think also science fiction's riddled with it. Unfortunately, science fiction academia is biased to the hilt, and I suppose it's partly for a couple of reasons. I was going to say one of them is a sort of incestuous reason is that a lot of science fiction writers of a certain period were the science fiction academics, and they're all very good at self promotion and putting other people's works down. Some of them, in particular, putting other people's works down while promoting their own. Um, and an example of that is that arguably one of your main academic textbooks, if you like, for if you work with science fiction, is the Encyclopedia of Science Fiction, first and second edition by John Clute and Peter Nichols, and absolutely riddled with bias. If you use it as a reference book, you've got to learn how to filter it out, I'm afraid, you know. Although the only thing I know about computers is that a button turns them on and they better work. Human beings used to be computers, Matt. It was a very interesting thing before the machines turned up. The best part of those big papers is calling someone who wrote something 60 years prior and saying, I read your work, you're a genius, I must have your perspective. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff on Dune, by the way, from way back. And some of it's the more sort of master's level papers, etc. And you get some of these things collected, and I think there's a book called The Philosophy of Dune, and I don't know, the Science of Dune. I found those books quite almost every paper in them questionable. It's just science fiction fans having a bit of fun rather than academic work. Um, but yeah. What you're talking about, I read your work. You must have reading something that. See, the moment I read, I thought I had a duty to read Samuel Butler's Erewhon. What's the Butlerian Jihad? I just wanted to tidy up a reference, and the minute I got into that, and my jaw dropped. Oh no, you know Frank Herbert's ripped the shit out of this book. It was gobsmacking. And I was actually thinking about something the other day, just the impact of we talk about the impact of certain books, but Erewhon's got to have. I was actually thinking about its impact on, it's got to have one of the biggest impacts on science fiction, how we think about artificial intelligence, this kind of thing, machine evolution. It's an incredibly important book. And I loved reading it, and it was just going, wow, these ideas existed back then. And as you say, I read your work, where you must have your perspective, that kind of thing. It's a pity you can't. Sometimes it depends on when you got to that prior work, and you can't just ring up Samuel Butler and go, wow, whoa, how far ahead of the game were you? It's incredible, to argue that almost 30, 80 years later, Frank Herbert's churning out a book that's riddled with your ideas. And Young is going to rip you off. This kind of thing. I keep telling myself I'm going to write something, but I barely begin before I quit. It's hard to sit and write. And at the minute, I had to run out of this room vomiting the other day because of the smell of sulfur coming into the house, and whether we've got the assault, was it lawnmower assault squad of death, or with factories blowing up, terrorists running around, police are. It's just I'd get no peace to write. That's the problem. That's why I want to move to United. But it's was it Dirk Bogarde said, is if you write 1,000 words a day, you're an author, you're a writer, and it requires discipline. You really just need to sit down and do it. But I've done a fair bit of writing years ago, and one of the short stories and all sorts of things. And I wasn't very good, but I thought my ideas were good. And I kind of told myself that, need to go out and get a bit of life experience, see a bit of the world, learn a few more words, and become a better writer. And I wasn't a bad writer, but I wasn't a good one. And I'd say I can write pretty well now. Well, listen, folks, it's gotten pretty late. It was a great chat tonight, by the way. Thank you very much, all of you, for joining me. I'm going to call it quits here because my throat's getting a wee bit funny. And we'll be back on Thursday at 10 o'clock with our next chapter of the Dune Book Club. I think chapter 28. I think starting with the return of Gurney Halleck, which I'm looking forward to. But yeah, I'll tell you what. You know what? The thing about writing, guys, fact, if you ever want to give it a go, is you can do it when nobody's looking. Nobody has to know. As Matt says, you don't have to publish. It can just be a thing you do for yourself. And you know, there's some really interesting things about writing. I'd maybe actually like to chat to you about them next time. I'll tell you a really good one is science fiction books written using forms of divination. Like the I Ching, for example. Philip K. Dick's got a few of those where people have written books using, I suppose, a form of oracle, if you like. You know, there's a whole bunch of them, and yeah, you probably figured it right around the 50s and 60s. But there you go. But listen, food for thought anyway for the next time. Thank you so much. It's been a great chat tonight. I've really enjoyed it, and we'll see you all on Thursday and at 10 o'clock GMT +1 if you can join me. And in the meantime, thanks again for joining us, and look after yourselves no matter where you are. Take care. And Matt says, thanks for visiting us. You're more than welcome. It's been fun, guys. Take it easy, guys. Night, night, or morning, wherever you are. Bye. I don't know what happened there. Your Steam was still, and yeah. And ooh. Hang on, we're not away yet. We're freezing. What's going on here?